Good. I got it. I'm calling this meeting to order on January 27th at 5:30. This is for our activities for strategic priorities. Let's all rise and start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Usually I have the youngest person. Justin, you can say that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Pretty straightforward agenda tonight. Again, I will have it open for public comment for anything that's not on the agenda up front here. We are meeting in accordance with the governor's policy and procedures for Open Meetings Act. If you come up to the podium and give us your name and number or name and address, you are giving us the opportunity to post that on our video out there too. So use that for what it's worth. With that, let's do the roll call, please. Clerk Smith.
Mayor Turnbull.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Roski Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Carter.
Here. Councilmember
Janetti.
Here.
Councilmember Krenz.
Here. Great, excellent. So we are on 4. I think everybody is a frequent flyer, so you know where we're going on this. Written communications, I don't think we had too many, did we, Clerk Smith, for this meeting? No, I did not see any. We just had a meeting.
Zero.
Zero. So we had zero. We're meeting 4 or 5 times this month, so it's a great opportunity. Next, before we go to new business, and again, if you're in the crowd, if you want to say anything on strategic priorities, I will open it up after that. So if you have any questions, if there's something else you want to say other than strategic priorities, that is the only thing on the agenda tonight. This would be the time to come up to the microphone. Is there anything else from those in the audience other than strategic priorities? Going once? Oh, come right up. Absolutely. And everybody has their package on strategic priorities, right? Excellent.
Reason 370 Fairbrook.
Mentioned their additional package on the back.
Yep. Yeah, for strategic priorities. Sorry, Ed. There are other packages on the back, so grab one of those. So when we get to that section, all yours, Ed.
Well,
Sorry.
everything on there we can talk about tonight that you're gonna, the plan and stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Well, anything that's in that package, I will give you the opportunity to talk on that tonight.
Okay.
Anything not on that, in that package, you can talk freely right now.
What I talked about last meeting, I wanted some answers on how much we were spending on farmer's market. You told me and George told me they'd get back with me. You didn't. Mr. Carter called or emailed me out of respect. And I want that. I want to know why I didn't get an answer.
So you got your information. Great.
No, I didn't get all my information.
Oh, you didn't? Did you give them the information?
I
Okay.
had questions about it.
Okay.
And I wanted to talk to you two about it. And
Okay.
neither one of you could. What do you do all day? You can't send it out an email? You're the ones that said in this meeting that you would get back with me. You and George, neither one of you got back with me. Why is it up to Mr. Carter to do it?
Is there any other comments?
Yeah, I got lots of them.
Super. We look forward to that. We do set priorities and I have meetings about 14 hours a day. Go on that calendar and you could come in here today. Good. Sorry, I know I've been told not to respond, but for policies and procedures from the governor, but I always like to give you information over and above most people. Thank you, both of you, for being here tonight. Any other opportunities here besides strategic priorities? And if you don't have that package, anything in that package, you can address under that section too. So take a look at that while we're going through this. That is all I have. One thing too, I'm going to have our Mayor Pro Tem let you know, she may have to walk out. There's some medical opportunities in her family tonight.
So hopefully I have a family member that's been in surgery for 8 hours. The last update I had is 5. They were hoping it was near close. So I'm hoping everything's fine. So if you see me looking at my phone, it's updates from the surgical nurse, my sister. So I apologize. You know, I do not touch my phone when I'm up here, but you may see me I have it turned off, so I'll have to tap and see if something comes in, and hopefully I don't have to walk out of the room. Everything's good. But thank you for your patience. I just wanted to let you know
Absolutely.
why.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm allowing her to have her phone on. You know, I don't like people to text, you know, that is not proper. And you won't see that very often, but for that information coming up, if you hear a buzz and she walks out, now you know why. So great. So with that, I am going to, is there any other comments? I think I looked at it going once, going twice. Okay, we will go to section 5. That is new business on strategic priorities. And we went through this as of last year, kind of streamlined it, put it in different sections. George will go through it. Every one of the experts are here, different directors for different departments for George. So you can explain what we're going to listen to here tonight, George. All yours, sir.
Well, good evening, council. Thank you all for taking the time to have a special session to talk about our goal setting or priority setting process. We call it our strategic priorities. It really is just a goal setting or management by objectives. And it's a process that we kind of made a little bit of tweaks to what you were doing before. We started 18 months ago. Normally we do a 2-year process, but we were a little late to the game of me being hired sort of in March. We got it going, I think, in June. And so we're looking at 18 months of past accomplishments, and then we're going to go into right away into the future in terms of what we set for future priorities. This really is City Council's process. It is assisted and the work is done by staff, and there are lots of hopefully good ideas that percolate up from staff to engage folks actively in their jobs. But this is, at the end of the day, council's process. I see it as council really doing 2 of the most important functions that you have. One is all the budget, the money we spend, you appropriate every dollar the city spends. And you also do the priority setting, goal setting document, which is what are the things besides the normal work of the day that we're going to do as a city government to move the organization forward, to move the city forward, to make it a better place to live. So, you know, without these documents, the city will pick up trash and we'll fill potholes and we'll do all the normal work. We'll respond with police and fire. We'll do all the normal things in the city. This is everything sort of else. What are the extra things we should be doing to improve the experience that customers have, whether it's online payments, whether it's whatever it may be. And that really is supposed to see the sort of the out of the ordinary.
Sure.
There are some things that hit this where there are really large construction projects where you could argue, well, maybe that's just the normal work of the city. But if it's something that is really a big investment, we put it in here just so that we can keep track of it and show what we're working on. So you'll see like the water projects show up here and those types of things because they're unusual in terms of the scope and importance of them. So with that, of course, we have all of our directors here. Dustin gets a gold star for sitting. Police are always early and always in the front. It's just the way they do.
That's true.
So
Thank you,
here's
Justin.
that. He's filling in for Chief, who was unavailable tonight. So the way we're going to do it is I'm going to roll through quickly the past year and a half of accomplishments. And really that's because some of the stuff continues, it carries on some of it may spark things you want us to look at further or explore further. But I'm going to do that pretty quickly, sort of just hitting the highlights. And
Great.
then we go into the future ones to be efficient with the use of your time.
Great. And does everybody have a package that's in here from the public? Okay. If not, let us know.
So just
On the back table.
go use this packet for your discussion. The main priority packet for next 2 years has different page breaks. And the reason we did it that way was because it was too hard to see when we had the full size packet. So try to use this to follow along.
Okay.
And that will be your best way. Every
I have
priority.
notes are on here.
Yes, so you may have to flip between both,
Yeah.
but just to
Three.
make sure you can try to follow
All right.
along on the packet here to see what page we're on.
Excellent.
When I have a question
Sure.
as you proceed through this. So when I went through, I'm looking at this copy, right? The one in our packet. And thanks to Michelle Massel for putting it on white paper for me. There's some things in here look like they don't show up in the rest when you hit those. If I have a question, some of them are logical because it says complete, others are not. Is this where you want me to ask or?
So we're going to do a quick recap just to sort of, again, talk about the accomplishments of the past year and a half. Then we will switch into the new priorities. When we go to the new priorities, we'll do each one by section. Of the 6 priorities, I'll roll through all the action steps. And then at the end of that, we'll do a stopping point for council to say, ask questions about a priority, ask for clarifications, ask for more expansion on it, ask for something else that you don't see there that you think should be there.
Like if it was there and now it's not.
Exactly.
Okay.
So at the end of your
Okay, I
6
just-
sections, you will open it up for questions for us.
The first part is really just a recap. So that
Okay.
really is not, I mean, council can certainly ask any questions they want, but it's really getting into the next one. And then we'll have opportunities for council again, this is your process. So from here, we're looking for, you like the priorities, you don't like a priority, don't think we should be working on it. You want a clarification, you want more, whatever it may be. And then you don't have to have everything done tonight, just hopefully a good pass through the entire document. If there are things immediately we know about, and then we will be coming back at a later date for
Right.
approving the document, and we can have more time for discussion if we want to have more discussion at a later date. So this is not your, this could be our only bite at the apple if everyone is satisfied, but if you're not, we can come back and have more discussion.
And on that cadence, you'll go through the 6 sections. We will give you input or questions or not. At the end of those 6 sections, anything that we talk about strategic planning, I will open it up for the public at that time. So just keep your notes on there instead of back and forth. It'll be one time. We will have 6 different, pieces of it, but then I'll open it up to the public for anything on the strategic planning. So.
Great.
Okay.
So again, the visions are the 6 main categories. Obviously, the biggest picture of what we want to become or achieve. And then we go to outcomes and strategies. Finally, down to actions. We spend most of our time on actions because those are the actual activities that we'll be accomplishing.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind as we go through the document. Next slide, please. So these are the 6 priorities. We're starting in the upper right-hand corner, high-performing government. These are things of the administration of the city government internal to the city. It could be everything from our computers, IT, phone systems, whatever it may be. Vibrant economy, pretty explanatory. How are we getting people to invest in the city and making sure development fits with what the city wants to see? Strong neighborhoods. People live in our neighborhoods. We want to make sure that we are focusing and making our neighborhoods places that people want to live, that they're safe, that they're the good places people want to invest and spend their time. High quality environment. Everything we do, we're thinking about cities being sort of the first line of defense on environmental sustainability. So obviously an important one for us. And then 5 and 6, enhanced public assets. I think of number 5 as being the public works assets and number 6 as being parks and recreation assets. Is sort of the way I divide those up in a simple way. With that, we can roll on.
Right.
So this one has a lot of stuff. I'm not going to read everything. I'll give you some of the highlights here. So good governance. Improving our financial stability. And you can see obviously OPEB and pension funding moving well up because of really a long-term push by council and staff to make sure we were well funded. And that's been a very important thing. We conducted an indirect and direct cost allocation study to make sure that all the specialty funds of the city were carrying their weight. Yes.
One question on the first topic. When do we get, so that 104%, when do we get the next update? Is that, okay, middle of the year?
June for December, the year ended December 31st, 2024.
Okay.
So that's when we see the big number.
That's
Hopefully
a
good
big
news.
day.
Big day. Then we did a lot of work on grants, a number of issues, grant policy, a grant database, and then also projects list showing where grants were being funded from and budgets. We did a number of key staff changes. This is something that we looked at because we had a number of contractors doing sort of disparate jobs. And with the downs coming in, a lot of projects, we felt that there were a number of things that we could be doing better in-house or as efficiently or more efficiently in-house. And you see those there. And then the following ones, I would look all towards citizen engagement. We increased social media engagement pretty significantly. And then we transitioned to a online packet, which I think has greater opportunities for residents to follow along with what's happening on the council packet. And that's for City Council, Planning Commission, and HTC. And that's through the Diligent platforms. Implemented coffee with council. We had 3 cycles of that. Great opportunity for people to come and meet face-to-face with council members, and held a total of 12 sessions. And hosted a wide range of public input sessions on a lot of different activities we get to see here. Pre-construction meetings, downs pre-construction, the pathways, pedestrians, Ford Field Park, master plan, lots of great opportunities for citizen engagement.
Do we track attendance at those public input sessions?
Good question.
We do?
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
And with the pre-construction, the idea is to get the list so we can have communication, but great. Vibrant economy, completed the parking study. Obviously, that's still in the completion phase, an important part of council's decision-making moving forward. We are beginning the implementation of handheld parking enforcement program. I would expect to see that in the coming weeks, some more activity. Continued highly successful downtown activities. Obviously, the DDA has been active in concerts, partnering with the chamber, lots of great events, skeletons, and so on. Now it looks quite a while back, but we installed the collapsible bollards to make our street activities easier to close and to increase the appeal. People were quite frustrated with the parked police cars and water barricades.
The Blues Brothers cars, yes.
Blues Brothers cars. We actually sold those.
Miss-
And making them safer and more attractive. And then we also evaluated the feasibility of implementing downtown street improvements, including curved streets, and that's something that we're actively looking forward to. Strong neighborhoods, strong, safe, and diverse communities. There's been a lot of activity here. I'll touch upon a couple of them. The HTC guidelines, green ordinance audit, a fire department optimization study. Obviously, the fire optimization study led to a couple of significant changes. One was the establishment of a deputy chief position for fire. That position is posted and we're receiving applicants. I think it closes at the end of this week. It also led to the reassignment and the sale of the ladder truck and putting it in Northville Township so it's closer and full-time staffed instead of sitting in a browned out station in Plymouth without any staffing available. So a good move that came about from that study. Updated engineering standards, $600,000 grant for lead service line inventory. As council knows, our lead service lines have to be replaced by 2030. So an ambitious goal for all cities across the state. Establish a school resource officer in conjunction with the school district. And that is an ongoing program. And I think we've been very happy with the selection of the person and that program overall. And largely in the Downs, this one developed Downs sort of an implementation team and program with communication to residents. And I think regular interactions with the developer that we really put a team in place to make sure that the Downs is moving along in a manner that is beneficial for our residents and will lead to a successful development. Next one. High quality environment, environmental sustainability. Completed the Greening of Millrace Village project in cooperation with the Northville Historical Society. I think anyone who's been down there has seen what a great project that was. Thanks to Wendy and to everyone who helped make that happen. Implemented the fog ordinance. That kind of got stalled halfway. You'll see that revitalized on our next priorities. It got stalled because of availability of contractors and a difficulty in getting some of the work done. Installed cameras on Mary Alexander Court in the dumpster areas. This was to stop the spillage of grease and to stop all of the, dumping that was going on illegally to make sure we're keeping an eye on our dumpster enclosures. Upgraded DPW fuel pumps and completed the tree preservation ordinance. On enhanced public assets, we completed an update to the non-motorized transportation plan, completed the traffic calming report, and adopted the traffic calming toolkit. Some of these, again, this is a cast of many who contribute to this. So when you see things like securing funding, some of that might well have been the mayor, it might well have been a citizen committee assisting its staff. It's a cast of many. But secured a $750,000 portion to repair the High Street culvert, which we are still working on the remainder. Completed the design of the 7 Mile and Center Street roundabout. Conducted a water and sewer rate study and implemented adjustments. And obviously that is the important precursor to addressing the administrative consent order and moving forward with all of our water infrastructure projects, those critical improvements that we need to do. The rate study leading to the rate changes, leading to the implementation of the improvements. Secured, and we're actually discussing moving to bonding yet this spring with council. Secured $1 million for allocation for removal of the water reservoir. Again, that was a grant through many, including the mayor, helping to find money for a project that we simply had to do anyway. So that was a tremendous benefit for our residents. Designed a sanitary sewer location connection to Oakland County for a Chapter 21 drain that is still in process. And then completed a number of projects for infrastructure, a number of Allen Terrace, City Hall roofing, and City Hall first floor office renovations, and updated the activities room with new fitness equipment at Allen Terrace. So a lot of good improvements there. Next one. And then finally, public assets, recreational, cultural. Completed the design of the Ford Field Gateway and Bank Stabilization Project. And obviously that project is looking to move forward to coming back to council in the coming couple of months. established a playground committee to assist in the Ford Field playground. Implemented a temporary farmers market location last year in the township, and now we're moving forward with a permanent location. Created the consortium for the Northville Commons, which is again a part of the farmers market. And then finalized design of the Randolph Train Serenity Point project. And I think you can finally see that there's some activity going on there, exciting to see a backhoe sitting on the ground there and cones. So they'll be starting to review
job.
things. And then pursued and secured a land and water conservation grant for the restroom project in Ford Field. Updated the 5-year Parks and Recreation Plan and finalized the design for River Daylight. So a lot of great things going on. Some of them you'll see continue on to the next. So now we're going to switch over to our future.
So before we go on that, just 3 quick things on all the accomplishments. As I look at that, as you went through all those, 3 things really stood out. No, we've got about a 10% increase on OPEB and pension in the last year, but we've gone from 60% in the early 2020 to over 100% on all those. So you've done a tremendous job. And Sandy, we appreciate that. That gives you the opportunity to spend the money on projects versus on interest and what have you. So that is one I think is tremendous. People don't realize, under 60%, we can have an emergency manager come in here. So we have come so far. So I thank the whole finance team and you directing them. That is tremendous. This is just one piece of that story on that.
And it really is. I mean, just to put a note on that, that is almost a 20-year accomplishment if you think about it, because 20 years ago, the city's people who were here before us made decisions to go from a DB to a DC.
Yep.
They went to a healthcare savings instead of the promise of healthcare. So there were decisions made over 18 or 20 years that get us to the point. So we can take a part of the credit,
Right.
but there's credit all along that whole process.
agreed. Indeed.
And from staff making the right decisions.
But it was a concerted effort and it saves us literally millions every year that you can invest.
It's going to
Great.
be the greatest.
I thank you all for that.
When we turn that corner, it's going to be one of the greatest things for financial sustainability for the city. And we just got to keep our foot on the gas and keep moving forward with that.
The second thing, you mentioned the fire department. 2 things in that. We have the lowest response rate in the whole state. We get to fires under 5 minutes, 4 minutes and 50 seconds. And I can attest to that when my house was on fire, but unbelievable. And the fire truck selling to the township was genius. We get actually a discount on our insurance because it's closer than in Plymouth and we have a little bit of money on it and we have that mutual agreement. So appreciate all the work on that. And the second, all these accomplishments, it's you and your team, but all those 27 boards and all the task forces have done so much work. And I see some of the people in here in those task forces. I thank you. I mean, this has been quite a run and you've been managing all that. So those are my 3 kind of
Appreciate
deals
it.
on that.
This is the work of an organization and boards and committees and citizens and volunteers.
Yep.
And of course, council's leadership.
Great.
So many people contributing to that.
Super.
So with that, are we ready to move to
George, should we add under the first section there that the general fund balance is at 30%?
we did under the if you skip back 3, I think it's under there that we would move to.
I just, in here, it's not on.
Yeah, skip back 3.
Yeah, it was at the first slide,
Is it a-
Vision 1.
It's in with the OPEB reference
Oh,
there.
okay.
toward the end.
Round off of the-
Where are we at?
I'm sorry.
Keep
Okay.
just on accomplishments in general.
Wow. Yep.
Oh,
I thank
okay,
you.
okay.
The accomplishments.
So we're here.
We're not yet.
I was just
Yeah,
reading
we're
the
here.
top line on that.
Sorry.
My apologies.
We
My apologies.
that way. It's not the most impressive because we moved about 2%,
Yeah.
but
It was
1%.
It was
What we also see is
26% 4 years ago. You can do
Yeah.
the same math.
So it's going the right direction, but also what you want to see for a city like us is that if we're doing changes to staffing, we're doing infrastructure projects, that we're maintaining fund balance. And we're either maintaining or building. So that's obviously a good indicator.
No, sorry, I missed that. Thank you.
Good.
We're trying to consolidate them so we didn't have as many
Okay.
bullet points. So now you'll see that this is prominently listed with a draft. This is things that, we try to engage all of our staff to say, what are the things we should be doing if we're a great functioning community? What are the things we should be doing, the programs we should be implementing? If it's for safety, for whatever part of our community, for customer service and so on. So if there's things we see here, feel free to say, hey, maybe that's not the direction we should be moving. And of course, at the end of the day, this is council's process. So this is high performing good governance. I'm going to roll through the entire one.
Okay.
And then I will take the break and then you guys can ask
If
any
we have questions, then we'll go to the next.
If I can't answer the questions, we have staff to jump up and answer it and we can have a dialogue.
Okay, so
Sounds
you,
good.
you do not want us to go one by one with questions,
You know,
finish it all and come
I
back.
think that whole section,
Well, I'm thinking like if you look under, this is just a suggestion, which maybe, so if you go there like high performing governance, so we're in
Yep.
major section one. There's a lot under, say it's A, B, C. It might be because we'll be so on a different topic by the time we're to a C or D. So maybe take it by like, okay, it's A,
Yeah, so.
right? Or B.
Yeah, we can try that. The only challenge is that if I go to each one and stop and everyone feels the need to comment, and I have 70 of these, I'm trying to be respectful of people's time.
I would suggest strongly we go through the six
Okay,
sections.
so
Let's go
that's-
through the section and we can go back to A, B, and C in that section. And then we'll go to section
for-
2, 3. So we're going to go through
Okay.
And we
that
can,
whole
just do
page.
one.
Yep.
Yeah,
we can
well,
try
it's,
for the first one, and if it doesn't work well, we can.
well,
go
it might
25
work.
points.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to try because there's 65 of these and I was afraid we'll be here all night.
Then after the sections, I will open up for public comment. So
You concerned we're
put
gonna have
your
a lot of
notes
comment?
together.
It's a-
on any of
it's
the
a joke, let
sections.
it go.
Okay, I know it.
This is exciting.
We don't mean to
stuff, so
slow
I
you
think
down,
this
but
is-
go right ahead.
Supposed to have
Yep.
comments.
So increased pension funding, and the first ones are just financial sustainability of the city, keeping on that journey to 120% funded, obviously. Securing the AAA bond rating from S&P. We would expect to be going for a bond rating in the spring.
Mhm.
We were on a call with our financial consultant and our bond counsel today as we're laying out the pathway. And I understand that unfortunately, they have changed some of the criteria. So the goal of a AAA may have gotten a little bit harder, but we will have more discussion.
We are
on that.
pushing towards
We're
it.
going to push towards it.
Yes.
because
What's a little bit harder?
it's looking at the larger, it's looking at the,
I'm sorry.
it's looking at the
Okay.
larger county instead of just looking at us.
We're slowing you down. Go. We'll get back to it.
So secure private donations for Ford Field. We are at the step now, where we're about to go out to the community for individual and for organizational fundraising for Ford Field playground replacement, a very exciting project. Pursue TAP and National Resources Trust Fund grants for Ford Field East. This is obviously the section of trail behind the water wheel building, and some significant grants will be needed to make that happen. Begin utilizing electronic plan review software to integrate with BSNA. Council may recall that you guys purchased a software package, approved that. There's about a 6-month implementation. We are getting close where we're actually gonna be implementing it probably in the next month. And we're going to be pretty cutting edge. We will have inspectors down at the downs looking at construction plans and approvals on tablets just in time, making approvals. I mean, it really is going to be, Northville will be right at the edge of what cities are doing in terms of using technology for building plans. So that's an exciting one. Explore options for online submissions of applications and payments for licenses and permits. So just trying to use more web-based payments to make things easier for our customers. Ensure financial sustainability for Allen Terrace in consideration of long-term capital needs. Later on, you'll see a more full capital list coming for Allen Terrace. The idea here is to try to match up fund balance and rent increases and rent costs with the capital needs that we have over years, so that we're sure we're setting aside enough money for projects. Evaluate fees and charges and recommend adjustments as appropriate. This is kind of a big project where a lot of times we have fees and costs that really aren't close to capturing the actual expense of running a service. So we're going to be having a look. We may actually have a consultant run around and actually do some of this work to make sure that our fees are valid in terms of what we're charging for applications and such. You can switch to the next. Finalize and implement a communications plan, including metrics. So we have a draft of the communications plan. We're going to be having a communications staff hopefully in place soon to finalize that. And that comes with a number of things. The next things actually evaluate and restructure e-newsletter and other electronic communications methods and assessing the website. So we really want to look at all of our communications to see what is getting us the most bang for the buck. Where are we getting the most active engagement, and where should we be spending money? Obviously, if something is high cost and it's not having a high impact, it's not an area we want to keep spending on, but that's something we're going to be looking at and spending some time on. Develop an emergency communications templates and practices. So this is something simply like model templates for press releases. If there are emergencies in the city, any types of emergencies, how are you able to communicate quickly and effectively about those without having to reinvent the wheel and start over on a Saturday night that you have to say there's an ice storm coming. You have templates for that stuff so you can get information out quicker to your residents. And then, of course, for us, we know Nixle is our biggest emergency management or emergency notification system. So increase enrollment continually in getting the word out about Nixle. Develop a snow and ice emergency ordinance. This is something that cities have pretty commonly where the mayor in conjunction with the city manager can say there's an ice emergency coming, declare an ice emergency, and then have people be off the streets, have them not park on the suspend on-street parking to facilitate clearing of the streets and to stop having stalled vehicles and stop short of the obstruction that comes with having, in extreme cases, you can have an order where you recommend that people not be on the streets at all. That's a more extreme measure, but that's something that we would look at with a snow and ice emergency ordinance. In anticipation of a bad snowstorm or ice storm, you can take action. Host open house meetings as appropriate. One thing we really came up with our communications plan was that leading with in-person communications, speaking directly to people first, and then using written communications to support that is really the way we want to go. So we've done a lot of it, but we're going to keep going with the in-person meetings whenever possible and leading with that. Assess current phone system. This is a customer service item that our phone system is woefully out of date. And also that I think we don't necessarily have the right mix of human interaction when a person is answering a phone to help somebody who may not know exactly where to go, instead of just going right into a call tree. So we're going to do some work on that to try to improve our customer service for our phone system. Continuing offering coffee with councils. We've done 3 cycles of that. And it sounds like council is interested in carrying on with that endeavor. Explore options for conducting a community survey. Community survey is a pretty common thing for cities. Maybe you do one every 2 years, and it really is a general satisfaction survey. What do people value about what we're doing? What do they think we should be doing differently? What should we be doing more of? And it's just a really good feedback method, a feedback loop for council to get some good data on what we're doing right. You could even put in there what communications tools are people using to get their city information, and then you can fine tune how you're giving them information. So there's lots of practical things you can do with a citizen survey that gives council great data. So we'd like to look at that, implementing that at some point. Continue to meet with neighborhoods for myself and community interest meetings. And that's just like council, me getting out there to meet with people and hear from them.
That's been great communication too, from the homeowners association. So thanks for doing that. Sorry, I know I jumped in, sorry.
Complete reaccreditation of police department. The department was accredited about 2.5 years ago now for the first time, and now we're up for a reaccreditation. That'll be happening. And then have at the top a second repeat of that, so disregard that. Support accreditation of the Parks and Recreation Department. So our Parks and Recreation Department will be going for an accreditation. Next is evaluate staffing levels. This is something that appeared on the earlier one, but this continues to ensure right level staffing, including cost-effective use of consultants and/or contracted labor. So for instance, this spring, we will be implementing a staff person instead of using solely contracts for trash removal and for cleanliness downtown. There may be other areas where we are going to be obviously having a communications person instead of DDA having a contract. So areas where we continue to fine tune our staffing to get the most impact for our residents and the best cost value. Next gets to emergency management. Ensure all leadership staff undergo emergency management training. So this is going to be your NIMS training, National Incident Management System training, for incident command, for unified command. I've had the opportunity to have a lot of training in that area. So we would make sure that all the senior staff have an opportunity to get to at least an intermediate level of emergency management training. And this is so that city staff can respond for all hazards that may come in terms of city risk. Research and recommend a comprehensive ethical ordinance. We talked about a more, council adopted a brief policy on conflict of interest.
Right.
And now we're looking to, understand council may have an interest in a broader ethics ordinance. And then we get to a couple of things about electronic document storage and retention, community development, digitized files, because we have lots of large file drawers with lots of oversized plans. And we'd like to get those that need to be kept digitized and kept for the future and free up space. And then explore options for record retention and modernization with electronic document storage and websites. That's that.
So that is that section. Let me just start. I only have two quick ones. I would ask that you be aggressive. You've talked about your marketing activities and you're looking with DDA for a new person coming in. Our website, make it simple, make it sure that all of our citizens can get things easy instead of finding Waldo on there. I don't know, you're into it, but I think you'll get support from all of us to make it as simple as possible. I appreciate all the work and between you and Lori and DDA, you're bringing the right resources and to do that. Thank you. Be aggressive and be even more aggressive. And the second one, you talked about working with Parks and Recreation. We have a great relationship with the township and working with Parks and Rec. We will have great opportunities between our Riverwalk and potential farmers market and the city park to work and how we're going to do that. That is something I'd say be very aggressive on. Those things are coming. Those are my two inputs. You've been aggressive. I always want you more aggressive on those two. So that's all I have. Others from this section. So that is the whole section. These are questions, anything on that section, council members.
George, I'll add one. Open house meetings is appropriate. I want us to get in front of what the roundabout construction plan looks like this year. Be early and often on that, walk the whole narrative from start to finish, traffic flows, what to expect and when.
So you're talking about the pre-construction, but
Pre-construction
community-wide, so
meeting.
everyone can come,
Yep.
like the downtown.
Mhm. Make sure it's well publicized and have it enough time so that with enough time out on the calendar that people can accommodate in their schedules to go.
Can't communicate enough.
We can't communicate that enough. I agree. That's the big one.
Others.
I can go next. So on the first one, the AAA bond rating, we've talked a lot in terms of the 30% and reducing our long-term debt. What are the other factors that we should be thinking about as we try to target that?
So the challenge, I got and Sandy was on the call, we got a brief snippet from our financial consultant saying that instead of looking at the income and the ability of your taxpayers, that they were looking at the broader county and your taxpayers. So that was the first time that we had heard that there was a change in the formula. So I asked if they were going to go back and do a review like our financial advisor would do a review to see how we sit in that. So we're not surprised.
And we will see which is better, Oakland County or Wayne County, because we're in both. So
Can we choose?
get me involved with that. Okay. I don't know.
Okay,
50.
second item is, and I know one of our goals last time was establishing the master spreadsheet for our grants. I know we have that, and we actually had a great meeting the other day in terms of having kind of a centralized location to help communicate on grants with Riverwalk Task Force, sustainability. One thing I would love to see is, and I know it's been shared via emails but if we could have that master sheet available online so that if people can go out and see at any point where the grants are, the match associated with that, timelines. I think that would go a long way in terms of removing some of the angst when people hear large numbers of what does that mean in terms of our budgets themselves.
Take it off my checklist.
This is a really minor one, but city is still one of the few places where I pay more if I try to pay something online than in person. I would be interested in taking a look at when we think about the staffing costs associated with, I'm sure there's fees, obviously. I know that when you pay something online, but when we bring something in, the staff has to go through, file it, process it, the associated fees on that side. Given I know a lot of our residents are shifting towards online payment the rest of their lives, and a lot of them are not here in the winter. I think that might be something that would be a beneficial lean in. And then I loved the conducting a community survey. One of the things that we've debated a lot is on some of our major issues in town, where people fall. I'd like to hear more in terms of what that looks like, how we could do it, timeline, et cetera. So let's keep that one on the radar. I think that's an important one.
Good point. Others, I know you took some of your thunder. Go right.
Oh, no, there was no thunder. First, I'm just going to go through notes related to what you just went through, and then some of that things that were removed from the prior, and just ask about that. I'm just going down, I'm on, it's on A2B, in terms of pursue TAP and NRTF grants. That is a Superfund site, and Wendy and I talked about that not long ago, like a week ago. We had a meeting with some of the members of the River Rock Task Force. Also, I think we need to make sure we have the determination that it's reuse ready. It's RFR is the term the EPA uses, and there's a determination that it's ready for reuse. We may have that already, but I'm not sure. And the other is, there are resources out there, at least to consult with for free, either at EPA and the state, for, since this is a Superfund reuse planning on Ford Field East, are there any funds available for that in addition to the ones that I know Wendy's pursuing? So that was just, it's just a little different kind of site because
Sure.
it's a former Superfund site. When I go down also, I'm gonna back up for 1 second. John mentioned the grants, to what do we have, where are we at, process, that's good. But what we removed from the list, which is related to that, is there's now a grant policy. And it's listed that it was distributed to staff, but I don't think we've seen it. And then that would be a good companion piece to post with that. That's, following up from our last.
Because we have a hot link for the grants, but let's put secondarily,
The
that
policy,
yeah,
yeah, the policy. So.
open to everyone.
I'm just going to double down on what was already said. This is going to the next, to assess the city website and revamp as appropriate. I'd say get rid of the as appropriate. It is a hot mess. We all know
Mhm.
it's a hot mess. It is not user friendly. Even when I know where stuff is, it's hard to get there. So it's difficult to navigate. Also, the search engine just does not work properly. Like, I'll know what the keywords are, and yet I'm getting
It's a great opportunity.
so also, it's made actually why I think launching Diligent is a step in the right direction. During this period of time we're in now, there's actually more problems because some things are, you'll go to something and it'll be like May 2024 info, right? When actually that's just the archive. So better focusing and get everybody in tune for each of the different places that you want to send them to Diligent. So it's very clear. We call it a portal. This was sort of like space and time continuum. So maybe getting better words. So it's very, very clear to people. So I think this needs to, we've been saying this for years. And I don't know the right way to do it, but we really, that is where people do go to our website for information, and it's very hard.
I think the challenge with the Diligent portal is we're not even on our website. We're going off to Diligent's platform. And it really is just the agenda and meeting stuff is going to be on that section. It doesn't interface with our web. So, that's.
Right. Well, and one of the challenges will be where are the needs that basically because of the way it's designed, Diligent, where do we need redundancy? Like, we probably still need a very thorough calendar because their calendar is you can't see what's on there until you punch through different things. And it doesn't list everything. So you're like, oh, well, you got a Diligent calendar here, but then we got this other city calendar here. And so this is not going to be an easy task, George. And this is just something inherited. I don't know when.
The challenge you're going to get it.
Yeah, yes. So I don't want to go to on the other. So I'm so glad about the snow and ice emergency ordinance. I think I would like to also, but this is also a safety issue, is our snow removal policy in neighborhoods. It says on the website that they may do the neighborhoods, these are in the non-emergency roads and not the main streets, if it's 4 inches or more. And they may do it if it's less. And previously they did it when it was less, but we're seeing a little bit of reduction, at least the feedback we're getting. So what is our policy? I don't think there's ever been one recommended to us by DPW. So, and that goes into safety too, because keeping the streets clear is also important. So
Typically cities, what they'll do is they'll focus on the major streets and not focus on neighborhoods because the speeds are lower, the traffic is less. And then you can focus your people driving back and forth on the major arteries and keep them open. A lot of times people feel that they want salt on local streets and it's just not a good.
oh no, they're talking about plowing. So
Plowing.
we have, as a city, really done really nice job that we know we've got our priority routes,
Right.
but then we go after a time, we'll go back and do those neighborhood streets, right? So I think everybody knows it doesn't happen right
It's just a-
away.
it's just a-
And it's not salted, but it's just, the 4-inch policy. And are we going to be now at 4 inches? Because that's quite a bit of snow for people.
It's just a matter of how much you want to spend on it. I mean, it
Right.
really is a policy decision
Yeah.
because you have a limited staff and
Well,
and after a certain number of days, it breaks up and usually goes away.
And I would suggest send in the policy. I did it to dozens of folks because I have a great opportunity of
oh, yeah.
interface with them. And I thank Mike wherever he is, giving me the policy. Oh, is he out and about? Yep. So,
Oh.
I can't see.
Oh, I have,
But I've been working with Mike. Thank you. We have to educate,
Oh.
how come it's not plowed? It's
So-
under 4 inches. We've had a lot of under 4 inches. Yep.
So yes, I not only send them the website link,
Yep.
the URL,
Yep.
but I also copy the text about the 4 inches
Yep.
so that they know what it is. What I'm saying is that what the feedback we're getting is that, well, before when we had a few inches, they were usually plowing and now we're not seeing it plowed. So I don't know if that's a resource allocation to, anyway, I don't want to belabor it. I'm just saying, thinking about that and what is the policy on that? And then, very much, related to the comprehensive ethics ordinance. It's a code of conduct, conflict of interest, the whole thing wrapped in one. And also the conflict of interest that we did make a minor edit to one. What was that, George, from 1988 or something that was in place? That's a challenge too, because there's two different places where conflict of interest and what we have to. So I think that needs to be done sooner than later. Very important to get that done. And then that is, let me just look at, I think John covered my other stuff. And then I have a couple questions for removals from the prior that weren't noted. Some things weren't removed, they were just rolled in. Things about email and newsletters and social media were sort of packed into
Packed
one, which
together.
I agree, I like that. But in particular, the evaluate the use of Zoom for public meetings. Did I miss it? Is that in the new one or is that?
I thought from council, we're already looking at that. So I
Yep.
didn't think there needs to be a priority at this point.
Oh, I think it's a
We're
priority.
looking to do that.
So my feedback is it was.
We assume it's a priority.
In the 20
So
years.
just
I mean, I've heard from
put that in
everyone
there.
to do it, so-
Okay.
Heard from all of
So
us.
in 2023,
heard
2024,
everybody.
it was
Yep.
listed as a priority.
Yep.
I'm not seeing it in 24, in the 25, 26. Did I miss
If you
it?
need to, you could put it in
We-
under
Yeah.
communication.
Okay.
I mean, I understood from council that you want.
Yes.
To me, it's under the communications
And
and
another
Zoom
one that
meetings.
was in there that I'm okay, is evaluate options to film BZA, PC and HCC. I don't know about filming.
Yeah.
But the Zoom, unless, I just think it should be carried
One of the
over.
reasons that came out was because we thought we would be able to do it more technologically easy with existing staff. And then it turns out, as council knows, we had a number of bumps in the road where we couldn't do it as easily.
Yeah.
And it
There was
turned
more
out that-
steps than our
That the cost
staff could handle.
went much higher than expected.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Good
and
stuff.
it's exploring, and I would say by now it's look at lessons learned and reach out with other communities that have moved towards us, what they're doing and how the costs are. But anyway, so that's, I guess, the only one that I see removed that
Yep.
at least,
We'll add it back in.
Put it into
Yeah.
communication. That'll be part of that new person's job. They just don't know it yet. Good. Anything else from council members on this whole
I
section?
just have quick, I've directly been excited about the things that you have done in the last year. So from the cameras in the back to the grease removal, to the water in my business, learning all that stuff. So I do appreciate all of that. Zoom communication is huge for me. And then same with, I would love to talk about a little snow removal in the downtown area. That's a big one. And then,
Sidewalks Especially, right?
very important, like the internet, the new person coming in, I'd like a bunch of my mom and her friends to get with that person to see what's the easiest thing for our
big red button.
citizens to click to know what to do.
And that
And
is
then-
the deal. The big
Yeah,
red button. How to
Not
get it.
not only that, but in business, like they need to be not everyone wants to be educated on the computer. We need to make it super easy.
Right.
Some of those applications even simplify them a little bit, that could help, but
Did our moms just become a subcommittee? of-
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yes,
are. They are.
yes.
Phenomenal.
Yep.
And then the
Gotta make it
survey, I
easy.
would love to do a community-wide survey. So thank you.
Actually, that jogged me on one thing. It's one thing I want to add to this. I think one of in communications, when the communications director comes on board, I think one of our biggest disconnects is the really good story we have on budget and financials versus the concerns and questions that we get. So I want to make sure that we got to find a method through the communications director and then also through our financial department, how we tell the story of how we're doing, how things project. I know that there's some big moves happening with water and other areas where there's some spends happening, farmers market, that the story's a good news story and we need to do a better job telling the story as part of our rollouts. I'm hoping the communications director can do that, because when you look at the top of these goals, we're getting more and more healthy, looking at a AAA rating, but yet there's a lot of concern. So we have to bridge that and tell the story in an accessible way. That's it.
I forgot.
Did you have?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So this was, I mentioned the Zoom meetings. The other was, it was promoting two-way communication with citizens. One thing I would like to see, and in terms of when a member of the public, whether it's a resident or business, reaches out to a staff person, either with a phone call or an email, is, we want everyone to be accessible and respected, even if maybe what they're hearing hurts a little bit. So it's accessible, responsible, transparent, and unbiased in when we respond and when we don't. So, but I think that's an internal policy. If somebody sends an email, at least you send a reply saying, I'll get back with you, so they know it didn't go into the abyss. And then some expectation on when they'll get back. So
That's actually also why we're trying to fix the phone system, because our phone system is kind of cryptic and it dead ends a lot and it gets people to the wrong thing. So it's not functioning very well.
yeah.
So someone could have called and left a voicemail and it could have just dead ended.
Yeah, so the other is
Fix that.
email. So email also, sometimes it's a challenge for people, like, am I sending it to the right person? Am I sending it to the right email address? Being responsive and saying,
Absolutely.
I received your email, so then they've got the confirmation. And I know this doesn't occur all the time. And then also actually getting back with them. So that's an internal policy too. It's an expectation for delivery of service. So that's it.
Great.
I'm sorry, I forgot that one.
And just to add simply I talked about Parks and Recreation. I know you have a lot of private-public partnerships we're looking at, and now trying to go back to the Ralph Wilson Foundation, because we did everything they asked us to do, and others. On all three of those things that we mentioned that Parks and Rec will be involved with, whether it's River Walks and Farmers Market and Ford Field. I think we've done everything some of these partnerships wanted us to do. So thank you for being aggressive. Be even more. Thank you so much. That's all I have on that section.
Moving on to vibrant economy unless anyone has anything else.
Nope.
So A and B really are two sides of the same coin. Evaluate the parking study and provide recommendations to address system needs. Obviously trying to find opportunities for efficient ways to get more parking into the system in the longer term, but also implementing a parking enforcement program that supports proper system utilization. So trying to reshuffle the deck. We heard from the parking consultant, which we sort of long thought that people may not be using the system in the most efficient way, which means we've got lots of spaces that are taken up for a full day and not available for our short-term customers. We expect to be having meetings with the downtown businesses in February to talk about trying to move employees to more long-term parking and save more immediately available spots. And then using enforcement to reinforce that. Develop strategic partnerships to expand program offering in the downtown. Actually, it's great timing. The DDA, the city, and the chamber met today to talk about a community concert series and how we can facilitate going to one concert series and one calendar, so to speak. So
Communicating together.
yep, and promoting that together.
Mhm.
Pursue funding for curbless streets in the downtown and other streetscape improvements. Obviously, we're into that and council's aware. This is one that we had actually started talking about before the incidents that occurred in I believe in Germany and in New Orleans, was to explore expanding safe street closure areas for special events to allow for greater flexibility in setup and layout. So we do street closures where we have events that expand beyond our bollard project. So are there ways that flexibly we can have barricading that are portable barricades that are actually crash rated, stop a vehicle? And there are solutions for that. We've previewed them in the past. We went to the sort of fixed bollard system, which I think is great if you absolutely know where you're going to have your event. But we're going to be looking at and previewing a more flexible system, something that we could have at Public Works and deploy during events to make sure, because our goal at this point would be not to have any large scale events where there's lots of people in the street without having it physically protected.
Sure.
So that's our goal.
Good.
Prepare, replenish, and augment downtown street furnishings, ensure they are safe and well maintained, sort of that streetscape improvement from the DDA. Utilize the new communication specialist to upgrade DDA newsletter and increase viewers, readers on DDA communications. So that's taking the same stuff from the city and from. And I think council knows this is a shared position between the DDA and the city, and the DDA is
Great.
eliminating a contract and instead going in-house with that. Improve alleyways to connect downtown businesses with rear parking. This is something we've talked about in terms of connections. The next one is about that, connections to the downs to our downtown, and connections to make sure that you have the type of walk to go from a parking structure, a parking area to the downtown that doesn't turn people off to their downtown. That's inviting and it draws you through it. Same thing with the downs. We don't want to have two competing areas. You want the feel of one where it has flow.
So that is done with that section. That's a shorter section, right? So you're done with that section. So on that, I know you've been aggressive. We up here in general, and myself, my personal opinion, parking and where we put employees and, you know, that flow and what have you, that is, I know we've had a lot of discussions here in the past months and quarters and what have you. That will continue for all of us. So I'd ask you just keep your foot on that wide open. Good. Others on this section.
Mine will be quick. One, as we saw during the parking study, right now maintenance is about $300,000 a year. DDA is covering 100. We got 200K coming from the parking fund related. We have a declining parking fund though. I would like us to spend some time thinking about strategies around how to secure that in time, because as that parking fund disappears, then it's going to turn into general fund and then it basically comes back on the taxpayer. So whether that's a conversation with DDA, whether that's looking at different ways that we may be able to increase the parking fund. If a development isn't fully parked, we should have a conversation around that as well. But I think there's opportunities to make sure we secure that, to make sure long-term that burden doesn't come back to the general fund. With regard to parking as well, on the enforcement side, one, I would say, let's make sure we're having a conversation with our businesses and specifically as we think about the approach. So what's the timelines we should be leveraging? What do they see as appropriate turnover rates and how time should be structured? What number of spots, if it's not the same throughout the entire lot? Things that I know we've already started some of those conversations. I fully support the forgiveness concept for the first and second, just because this is going to be new. But I've also seen concerns on a time limit applied to ADA accessible or handicap parking. So I want to make sure whether we can not have a limit on those spots. We got to think through that, but that would be my preference right off the bat. Now, if we say we don't have enough spots, then we should talk about more spots. So let's just make sure we don't forget that and apply a blanket policy for people that may not be able to make it back to their vehicle in the same timelines as others. And then on the improved connection between historic downtown and the downs, to me, that's a phenomenally important topic. I know the DDA and the EDC are already having conversations around that. I think defining what does that approach look like is key. And then what I'd like to see us start thinking about is what the funding strategy around that looks like as well. So we can plan that in advance because we know it's coming over the next few years, and having one connected downtown is going to be important. And especially since the center, given our elevation change, how we handle that's going to be critical too. So just starting to think about what are our options, what do costs look like, so we've got years to plan for that and we're not reacting.
Ideally, you would do something where you have a development that gets to foster the public improvement, that gets to help support the public improvements in the proximity. So if there are things that are ripe for redevelopment in the area between both, you do something just like you did with the River Park, where there are connections that you use brownfield to pay for as well.
And that would be the advantage of starting to think through those approaches or potential options in advance, is then we can start partnering with businesses that are coming in or entities and leverage that as a public benefit that may make them eligible to deferring interest out of brownfield or something to that effect.
I know DDA's had preliminary discussions on the gap in between the downtown and Katy Street and some of those businesses. Yep. But others.
George, just a few quick ones. I co-signed on the long-term parking financials. That's $200,000 hole that we can forecast in the future. So we got to start working towards that. It's not in here, but maybe this is the right place to talk about is a master plan update. I think the parking study needs to feed into the master plan update because in the future, as we address development, that will also by definition address parking. And some of those solutions to parking probably are more favorable than others in terms of what the residents want. I know we're due for the master plan, and now that we have the parking study, I think it only makes sense that we have the planning commission kick that off. And then as part of that parking plan, the Mayor Pro Tem and I are already working on updating what was presented to us, which handicap parking, EV parking, everything else that was insufficient. And then also, yeah, I agree completely. Wayfaring signage. Just walk down Katy Street today. There's almost nothing pointing to where what's going on just north of there. Big opportunity on that. And then this was one that Councilmember Carter talked about, I think 2 years ago, and I thought it was a great idea. Is as part of the signage is looking at an idea maybe in the future of neighborhood signage. Like you're now entering the historic district. You're now entering Cabbagetown. This is the history of Cabbagetown. Maybe it's just something that goes on the back burner for now, but this city loves to tell its story. And I think we have an opportunity there because you could have friends come. I've had friends come and go and they say, well, where's the historic district? And so you could drive or walk right through it and not exactly know, as opposed to maybe celebrating it a little more.
So a later item is coming about historic district signage, but it's a little bit different approach from Councilmember Carter. But one of the things sometimes cities do is on the street signs, they'll have a street sign and right below it, they'll say historic district.
Yeah,
So you
something.
know, when you're in the whole area, you're in a historic district.
That's being looked at the bicentennial committee too, to have big sections.
So just something to think about. That's not a top priority.
I like the
It's up
idea
to-
though of recognizing not just the historic district, but the various
Oh, yeah,
neighborhoods.
absolutely.
History
All
with
four
everything
neighborhoods.
Bealtown,
Historic
they have a
ones.
history in Bealtown.
Mhm.
You know,
I think that's on the docket.
it'd be nice to have that out
Like-
visible at some point.
Outer downtown?
I'm good.
That's inappropriate.
I've spoken on
Okay.
all of these.
Good.
So I'm good.
Anybody else on this section?
Yeah, well,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I have, yeah,
Yep.
so, I'm sorry, it's, all right, so,
It's a long story.
I'm tripling down related to the for maintenance and capital improvements related to parking. That was actually in our 23-24 and it just sort of got dropped off. It was part of, there's a parking study. And then it was probably too much for one action item. And it says maintenance and capital programs, long-term funding options. So that's a carryover. So I
think we thought we caught it with evaluate the parking study and provide recommendations to address system needs. But if we want to.
it's like funding,
Yeah.
I worry about too, one, it's already been mentioned related to just the maintenance, ongoing maintenance and some improvements. But we've got two parking structures that have a life expectancy on them. Now, it's a ways off, but at the cost of those things, we have to start thinking, what are we going to do with that? So it's like two different major components. So, but it was a carryover item. So I think the funding is sort of just to put that
Good,
in.
add it in there.
Let's see. Thank you very much for focusing on the Safe Street closure areas. Much needed. I'm assuming you're talking about mobile versus bollards.
Yep.
They have mobile ones that are really
Yep.
secure. I mean, it's just a reality of life now. And yeah, so thank you. I just want to say thank you so much. And when we say alleyways to connect downtown businesses, really talking about pedestrian walkways, right? Not alleys like a car alley.
That's what it was.
Or
intended,
vehicle,
yeah.
yes, so you might
Transition
want to
areas.
just, and somebody might, when they think of an alley, it's more vehicular.
Right.
Versus a walkway. I just wanted to make sure. And then if I go, I think that was it. Let me just like sure the removal stuff. One thing that was removed, I believe there was no headers in here. Yeah, it was removed. And it was developed downtown health metrics. And the final note, this was in our 23-24. And it says database should be completed by the end of the fiscal year. Staff will work with Ritter to present new capabilities to DDA board. So is that still something that should be here, carried over? Because, okay, so, because I think that's really important and it was removed.
I thought that project was largely completed for the TDA.
Not quite. We still got, we probably have 80% of it.
Yep, so
Yeah,
Get
so
with
it's the-
Lloyd to put that on.
Yeah, so that was the only one I saw that maybe was a little premature to take it off, so.
Great. Anything else on this section? And your phone was ringing, by the way, in between. Go ahead to the next section.
Strong neighborhoods, strong.
I'm just gonna read my
diverse communities.
sister's
Okay, it's okay.
Evaluate the implementation of the updated HDC guidelines and if necessary, draft amendments in conjunction with SHPO. So I think that there was some changes made that perhaps this HDC is not exactly comfortable with, and I think there needs to be some more staff time and work done on that. Review ordinances and recommend updates to modernize land use policies. There's a number of things related to like generators, parking, administrative review, staff review of certain things where we could really update our planning and zoning ordinances. So I'd expect something like that. Revise the sign ordinance so it's content neutral. Obviously, the legal landscape has changed regarding sign ordinances, and our sign ordinance is still back in the old days, so we have to figure that one out and update that. Updates to the ordinances related to city parks and reservation of public spaces. Evaluate establishing a rental registration ordinance and program. So this is a big one. It's big because it's going in a different direction than we have before. But if you figure there could be some 300 or 400 some odd houses in the city that are rented and not owner occupied, and then you could probably add that same number of apartment complexes, apartment units, that you're going to have 700. That's a really rough number. 700 rental units in the city, and no one is going inside those on a regular basis to make sure that they're safe, and habitable, and that they comply with the property maintenance code. So you can go very small in this, where you're just having people register, and then you have a database to know that there are rentals and where they are, all the way to a robust property inspection program where you're licensing at the start, you're doing an all trades inspection, and then you're doing an every 12 or 13 month reinspection where according to the property maintenance code to make sure that they're safe and habitable. You could do every 2 years, anywhere in between. Some communities have a very robust inspection program. Some communities do it much lighter. We have none. So I think this is an area that we may want to, from a policy perspective, know what's out there and also know that people are renting safe, habitable spaces to people. And that's something that we think as a public policy should be looked at. Implement lead service line program in accordance with legal requirements. That's something that we talked about already in terms of a continuation from the last, because we're not done. That's a work in progress. Explore emergency water connection with neighboring communities. This is with Novi exploring this opportunity to have this emergency connection so that they could benefit both communities. If there's a water outage or low water for either community, both communities could benefit from that. Develop and implement emergency exit maps and protocols from Allen Terrace. So this is a safety program for Allen Terrace related to evacuation. Consider allowing accessory dwellings in appropriate zoning districts. I hear from Justin that this is something that has been looked at over time. I think that this is something that's getting a fresh look at cities in a lot of places because of the housing shortage, because of people aging in place, because you may want to have your, elderly parent live with you. And also it promotes walkability and it promotes more, I guess it promotes better usage of existing land. We don't have to build new. You're just building accessory dwelling units or making accessory dwelling units. So that's something that we would propose as well. Continue to support the diverse senior activities being conducted through Parks and Recreation. Again, to aging in place, we have a great menu of programs and a very active senior population that we get to meet with on a regular basis through events. And that helps, obviously. It's not just a fun party, it's socialization for people who may be facing isolation. So it is a very important thing about keeping people healthy in our community and keeping them engaged. Produce and distribute welcome packets to new residents is something for some reason we don't do. A lot of communities give out welcome packets. The trick is finding out when someone moves early enough, but everything about just a welcome letter from the mayor telling people, welcome to the community. You put your recent publications, where to look for days that you're trash, anything like that. So it's something that we'll be exploring further in terms of a welcome packet.
Isn't that triggered? Don't they come in because?
Newcomers.
Yeah, and the newcomers.
Well,
group.
no, the newcomers, well, sustainability has that too on their goals.
Mhm.
But the other is, just a question for the clerk. They come in because if it's a new homeowner, they'll file, say, the homestead, for homestead property tax, they have to file. Oh, that in finance, because that could trigger that we know somebody's new too.
Mhm.
Anyway, that was
Good
just,
point.
it's hard to know when somebody moves in.
Sure.
Yeah, it is, but it's a good thing to just give them a welcome letter and to
You're
let
right.
them know that we
Oh, yeah.
are happy they're here and we can give them the publications and all that. Evaluate establishing historic district house signage program from historic homes. This is something that was a little bit on the back burner of our last one. And we've done some previews of some other programs and think this is something that can be implemented. We'd like to first do a little bit of a survey to see if people have an interest in it. So we don't launch a program and have 2 people sign up, but hopefully get some good interest from people and then launch a program. Plan and implement a successful bicentennial program. We've all heard about that. Complete relocation of the log cabin. And that's it.
Just 2 things on that, and the log cabin is through donations and a lot of support. We haven't put a dollar in that, but through different organizations. One thing that you brought up about inspections and safety, I think the fire department, I've been the chair most of the last 5 or 6 years. We do a lot of things in the business sector. Maybe we look at those policies and procedures, that's between Norfolk and Plymouth. Plymouth has done more of those inspections, and the chief is here because they have a lot of senior areas. So they're going into that. That is kind of a business industrial. We don't have quite as many, but we have the policies and procedures. It all reports to Chief Sam Hat. That is something we can look at. Is there a way to look at those policies and procedures for residents too, to do those inspections? So yeah, that you've done that over the last, 5 or 6 years in a great way. And again, I think that's been very successful, and we review that on a monthly basis.
And the logic of doing when someone has a home and they live in it themselves, there's no business.
Right.
But when you're renting it to somebody,
Right.
you're having someone take over that place, and the hope is that you're renting something that's safe to somebody, that's habitable spaces. Are they having people live in basements where there's no egress window?
Right.
Is there, anything that could go wrong, to have that second double check to make
Right.
sure that this is the problem of Airbnbs, right?
Right.
Is that people may be renting out spaces that are completely unsafe for people.
Right.
And if there's that business relationship where you're renting it,
Right.
then government has an interest in making sure. that it's being
Absolutely.
unsafe.
Even walkthroughs like that, because
So the fire department does offer home safety surveys, so it's volunteer, they call it, they request it. And we just basically give them information. It's not like an official, we have to get this fixed,
you go out there, inspect their activities. I don't think we publicize that enough. I know we publicize it with the businesses, and we go out there, and I want us to be even more aggressive in Station 1, which is the city of Norfolk, versus Station 2. That's Plymouth. Where is that? Is that a town south of us? Okay. But from there, would love to have us to make sure our residents know that's available to them. Just to walk around your house, and you can give them. We're not, charging them or anything for doing that. Okay, good. That's all I have in that section. I open it up to council members.
For me, just one thing, anything I have to say all comes down to communication. I mean, I hate to say it, but it can all be, worked out with a little bit better open communication on like, whether it be social media, the website. I think all of this can be all of my,
Great.
next.
Others on.
Might be 10 seconds.
Okay.
The welcome packets, as was mentioned, sustainability has been talking about that. EDC has been talking about that as we think of like coupons to new businesses, et cetera, and Northville newcomers. So I think that's a good partnering opportunity. And then the other one is I'd love to be involved in the discussions on the historic district house signage program.
Mhm.
I know there's different ranges of if it gets certified by the state, that can be a multi-year program, or if you're just getting a common template that people could opt into. So there's signage like a lot of cities around us have that just all looks the
That's
same.
more what we're looking at was the common signage template that we would tell people, you could get it in 2 colors, bronze or silver, and And it's, you know, people can order it and it has the date of their house and that type of thing.
So one thought we had was, and it could be optional, where you say the cost is X, but you have an optional donation on the top of that that helps fund the bicentennial as well, because we want to make that as self-funded as possible. And so if there's ways that we could partner with that, where it's sharing the history, but also helping to raise money for the bicentennial, it was a thought the committee had.
It's great.
that we could join in.
John is the co-chair of the bicentennial committee, so there's a great deal of pressure on him to
He
get
was
this
also the one
right.
who first
Right, duly
mentioned
noted.
the sign, the housing sign.
There's a lot of circular
I
routes
understand.
there.
Good.
Are you?
I'm good.
Yeah,
Oh,
go right ahead, Barbara.
Well, that was not one of them, but related to signs, there was recently a little small mini lecture on that and, oh, buy this sign and it was like $450, you know, because it was officially through
Mhm.
SHPO and all this stuff. They are so high. There's gotta be, I think a lot of people would do it.
Yep.
And even maybe kick in a little more donation for a good cause. If it didn't have a starting price, I mean, you know, house plaques
It's gotta
could
be affordable or it's not.
and there's very,
Absolutely.
very nice ones that, you know, they're still not, they're not $20, but they look very nice, but that, because I thought, oh, that'd be nice to have one of those. And when, I think it was $450.
The state program is.
And I'm
real
like,
expensive.
It
It takes time.
So, anyways,
Year.
I digress on that one. The, so one is, this is related to city ordinance, related to city parks and, reservation of public space. As a footnote on that is that there is a map, crude, I think it's from the eighties. The last time they looked at all green space and said, here's the green space in the city-owned property, and here's the ones that are designated as city parks, and here's our other green space, which are not parks. It'd be nice to actually have a map of that is online, because it's just never has been. I mean, I think it's actually colored in crayon, the last one. It's pretty, but anyway, so that's sort of an add-on to that one.
Justin's.
Yeah, so thank you very much, related to the rental registration. I don't know what the answer is. I wouldn't want it to be so onerous that there was some attempt at
Right.
avoidance. But I think doing that, there's an increase in that. And I would add to that, when you're thinking more long-term rental, but we know for quite some time, we've had Airbnbs or whatever, the short-term rentals in town, completely unregulated. I know one near me, there were 3 or 4 that they changed the interior of the structure for them. I bet it was not ever
I think we'd have to see
inspected.
if we could bring people under the program. If we do a program, if you could bring short-term rentals, it's still a rental. It doesn't matter to us
Yeah.
if it's a year-long lease or if it's a day-long.
Well, and particularly this is true in any house, but this particular one was at a historic home, carving them up into smaller, which is fine, but the chances for the electricity or the the problems, they have smoke detectors because they're carving up existing. And, Ann Arbor, look, runs into this problem, of course. But anyway, so thank you for having that on here. I would just add short-term rentals are very important. Question, develop and implement emergency exit maps for Allen Terrace. There are none now? How can there be none?
I,
Is that? Okay, so I thought that
We're
was
working on it.
required.
I know.
Okay,
Jolene
so
is
I
here.
just,
Good.
I thought maybe you were saying update. You really meant update, but that's not.
Update
Okay.
and improve and,
opportunity, but we will
Build.
make sure they're there.
okay, they're almost done.
It's okay.
Good answer.
And the accessory dwelling units, which of course many communities have dealt with, some unsuccessfully, some successfully. There's good models out there for good ones, ones that are working well. So thank you for that. And then I'm just gonna go right down to planning and implementing a successful bicentennial program. I know this is near and dear to our hearts, but what is the way it is now is that's through sponsorships, donations. Because are we implementing it as a city? We're part of that team, but there's not what have we budgeted? Is there a budgeted cost? I've not been.
So there have been outreaches for cost and there's been, I think we're sort of gaining steam in that.
Okay, because when we say implement,
Yep.
I'm just wondering what we're
We're-
expecting to see in our budget.
I think we're partnering with a number of the different groups.
We have private-public partnerships and John is involved with it and we've reached out. I don't think John's quite ready to do the overall budget from if we need to be
We've seen
involved.
that in the budget.
Yeah,
But there's been
not
a lot of outreach outreach and a lot of input and people are very excited. So no, I don't think there's an ask today.
No, not, but I mean, so we're,
considerations.
so it's, you know, being involved in the planning and support for us, the Castle Bicentennial. And I'm, that same theme, I'm going down to support, it says complete relocation to the log cabin. To date, that has been nonprofit, volunteer driven with in-kind help from the city. So we're not we're supporting the relocation and completion. And, you know,
Well, it sounds like we have a lot of support in terms of where it actually is. I mean, the whole process of it ending up in our.
well, I mean, we've got a donation for it isn't a basement. Well, I think now maybe they can.
And the
for
foundation.
a basement for the foundation. So we've got all kinds of in-kind donations coming in that are substantial. Where I see the city making a difference on that is there's going to be tap fees. Because we have to tap in
Yeah,
for
there's
water and
water,
sewer. So I
electrical.
think to the extent the city can work, because this is going
We are
to be
supporting, we are not.
supporting as a nonprofit,
paying.
but there are ways that we can help reduce some of the burden
Correct.
on that. And then, because that will be taken over by Parks and Rec and others. So, you know, as we can move, so I think but complete it, we're not the lead
I
on
mean,
that.
it's the city's park. This is
Right.
this is a group of people who've raised money to
Yeah.
plop it in your park. So a lot of the management and oversight and all of that rests with the city to make sure. it's
Yeah,
done.
well, they
Right.
actually have a
Firm.
very skilled builder that's volunteered to be a site manager for the
Yep.
project.
On our piece of property.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it's amazing what we've got on that. The other is that I'd like to ask here, and I know we don't have the presentation yet from the Cemetery Restoration Task Force, but that is our
That is
property.
Mr. Krenz. He is the chair
Yeah,
of
so I think in adding to support the cemetery the restoration of the historic cemetery is very important because
Yes.
that's been,
Kind of envision the bicentennial event, the cemetery restoration of being encapsulated within the bicentennial.
I think the cemetery is separate. I mean, that is a piece of land not long neglected. And I think
Absolutely.
it needs to be called out.
And up to this point, it's been in-kind donations as we're doing section by section, but it will be a budget item sometime. We'll see. But right
Yes.
now it's been paid for, through individuals.
Right, but that is, we do have a responsibility under law.
You are correct.
So I think does somebody else not?
Yep. Nope.
Think it's not warranted?
Oh, I think it's an outstanding opportunity. It'll be on the bicentennial tour. It'll be
Yeah, but
an
this
activity
is-
and they're putting money into it. And yes, we will put money into it from DPW.
Oh,
You
yeah,
got it.
because not to be dismissive, but it's not a come and go
Yep.
bicentennial
Oh.
year. This is a long,
Oh, I know. Absolutely.
and we've never had it on our radar.
Mhm.
And it shows,
Good point.
right? All of us for
Yep.
years. I'm just looking. I think, I'm just over here. This is just what got removed. I think I'm okay on that one. And, the stable neighborhoods, this is under maybe the safety, but, George, we've talked about this, is we have something already where, a tree maintenance, annual tree maintenance program, and we have recommendations from Davy Tree on what we should be doing each year with those trees. Ones that, flagging them for disease, that they need to be removed, or limbs on trees. So we have, that sort of sat by the wayside in terms of being a high priority, and I know we already have that. Mike can confirm from Davy in terms of their recommended program. So I think that needs to be a high priority item, and, getting it up and running to full scale implementation of what Davy Tree had recommended that we do.
Good.
So.
Go ahead, Jim. Excellent. Move on.
Well, actually, I have one
Oh.
other question. I don't know. I
Sure.
didn't see it. I don't know if it fits within a different section, but I do think, or I recognize a lot of our effort right now is going into maintaining oversight of new developments. So I do feel like that our oversight structure, making sure they're following the ordinances, routes are being followed for trucks, vehicles, making sure we're calling that out explicitly as one of our priorities is going to be critical for the next couple of years. So if we could add that in.
I think it might come up in the development section, but
No,
Yeah,
I think, it was, hold on, it was hold on, where was it? There's no header.
I saw it
It
in a
was
section.
it was under 3. B was, was support approved development
In the
project,
prior year.
but it won't, this is not carried over. So Boundary Flask, well, that's sort of in limbo.
Let it go.
The Center Street condos, Downs development, that is all removed, George.
Okay.
And I think, is it?
She's looking at the 2023,
It was
2024.
You don't have that in front of you.
So you're talking about the same thing?
Yeah.
So it's not adding it, it's just, it should be carried over.
Yes.
Look at the 20,
Spending a lot of time.
2023,
Right, yeah,
24.
just recognizing that that's a critical part of the city's responsibility.
And like I said, before it was 711 North Street, was 711 North Street condos. And I think we now have two developments on Center Street.
Yep.
That are in the works. Did we do
Good.
the support safe school district? Is that still in
Safe
there?
routes to school.
We did this, yeah, school reasons, that's complete. Okay, because I know before Mike had wanted it on the radar related to the,
Safe routes to school.
Right. That was in the
Safe-
23, 24.
and it was the, under the railway, right? Because in particular, because the Downs development, because that's where the elementary school was, should that be on there and
So
on
I
our
don't know if
radar?
There's a-
any opportunity.
We have a provide safe roads in the next section.
We've already looked into that option with the engineers and with that area.
Somebody's microphone.
And I mean, there was some options presented for that area. But none of them really are that feasible. It's more turning it to one-way traffic underneath that bridge. Which I don't want to benefit. The local businesses over there.
Right.
And we're looking for funding. We just haven't found the funding.
So
from the
for
state,
now,
federal,
so it's not in here.
And the
That's
railroad.
safe, so we should
We've
just
done all
leave it
three.
out for now.
Okay.
Because, yeah, okay.
And
all right.
keep it on kind of the radar. I know we've had those meetings with railroad, with the state funding and federal for that easement area.
Yeah,
Ready to
cover
move
your
on
stuff.
to
Yep, move on to.
environmental?
Oh,
Usually I don't-
follow up.
Yeah, no, a lot of good comments, so I crossed some of them off. On bicentennial plan, I'll insert that here. Mayor Pro Tem touched on it, but we have some really good citizens working on the cemetery task force. One of them's here tonight, Mr. Murdoch.
Yes.
One element that we want to maybe tie into the bicentennial on is something like an accessible history plan. If it's like an app or something that's geolocated with key points. When you're in Oakwood, you can identify key cemeteries, something like, we don't know what that looks like yet, so that's more of a discussion. Next week, I think most people at this table already know about it. We're going to bring into discussion on the cemetery task force with capital and resource support and the next two budget cycles. And then as the Mayor Pro Tem look at, we're going to be looking at maybe pursuing a long-term evaluation of what that line item looks like in the DPW budget to make sure we're sustainable. I'll put in a plug for everybody to go over to Oakwood. You can see some of the stones at the front
Done a great job.
have been, look absolutely wonderful, but once you go about 100 feet deep, there's not a whole lot to be proud of in terms of maintenance back there, just because we haven't paid attention to it till just now. When it came to school and safe walking, I had that as well. I'm leery on the Doheny train station, or the, not train station, but the underpass. Because once you get on the other side of that underpass, you have 1,000 feet of industrial walkway in the dark with no sidewalk. So that's something we got to think about. I'm not so sure I'd want my kids walking.
Partnering with the school district.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then also, this was a concern before because we had a hillside student hit by a car on Center Street. Was looking at our hillside crossing into Cabbagetown, like especially as 7-Eleven, I think we said the new Center Street condos are going in. I want to take a look at that because that sidewalks, everybody knows, is right on the edge of the street. I want to see if there's something we can do there because a lot of kids, if you talk to the crossing guards, they cross at Hillside, at Baseline right there. And I know we gotta look at signage and some other things, but that sidewalk is right there. And then when you're plowed, there's even less space there. So just long term, if we're looking at, safe walkways and passageways for schools.
Or bikes and what have you too. Okay, great. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's it.
Not calling you there, Andrew. Good, good. Now you may go to the next section.
Environmental sustainability. Evaluate options for monitoring soil erosion and sedimentation control measures in-house. This is something that's done by the county, and I think it's been done. There has not been a high degree of, am I in the right space?
Yep, where the,
Yep. Okay. And obviously, I think that this is something where we get the questions a lot. We're on site, so we may want to bring the soil erosion and sedimentation control program in-house and do it either under our building or public works. Obviously, we would charge a fee for that from the developer, and we would be able to monitor and take enforcement on that. So that's something we would be looking at. Conduct inspections, this is environmental sustainability, conduct inspections of electrical panels in all facilities to ensure safe and efficient functioning, make sure we're not wasting energy, and also that they're safe. Assess City Hall HVAC systems to provide, I don't know if people know that we've had tremendous problems with our HVAC system here, and it has been improving. That's something we're going to keep an eye on. Develop non-motorized facilities map identifying existing routes to popular community resources. Complete installation of mid-block crossings associated with the Downs project shared streets grant. Develop an informational piece of recycling resources. So this will be communications, could be web-based to make sure people have access to that information. Complete the implementation of the fog ordinance. Again, this is something that we had to sort of take a pause on, and I think we have to continue to push on this because once people say they're not getting a contractor or the contracts aren't available, and then nothing happens, we have to come back with deadlines and push again on that. Evaluate programs for commercial refuse management, including repair and or replacement of dumpsters, add dumpster locks. So this is continuing to look at the downtown dumpsters to make sure that they're functioning properly, that there's not illegal dumping and they're not creating a nuisance and they're not messy and bringing pests and all sorts of vermin around. Update the tree survey and expand inventory to include public properties. So we have the tree survey, but it's in the right of way and not necessarily on our public properties. Conduct a natural features inventory on Ford Field East. And that is it.
And that's a one pager, right? Yeah. So from my standpoint, just two things on that. One, on the erosion and what have you. Ford Field, they've started it now. I see that $750,000 of erosion preparation as Randolph Drain comes in. That was a federal grant from Haley Stevens. Stay on that. We had to do that before we did the walkway, before we did the activities on top. I'm so glad to see that. That's something that's not very sexy, as I say, but it had to be done. But at the end, there'll be a triple waterfall and we won't have the 8 or 9 feet of erosion that's happened over the last 100 years. The second area, you mentioned with your new inspector, I think he is monitoring, all the felt trims, around to keep the different soil from going on the streets. We can do a better job, and we have sweepers that are in and out, but it's great. We can call them. They're out there that day. I think that's an advancement from where we are. So I thank you for bringing him in as a full-time inspector here. And we are on a lot of those sites, but that is something we all get calls every day when there's dirt on the roads and we're not doing a boundary, in between. So I thank you for
And we
that.
really don't have the ability to enforce soil erosion. It's county, but because we have the site supervision, we can enforce it under that. But ideally, we would be charging people a soil erosion fee and we would be monitoring it ourselves.
Yep, that's all I had. I just thank you for those two. Stay on those strong. Good. Others on this section? Good. Good. Go right ahead.
Yeah, these are so the informational piece on recycling resources, are you talking about something on the website?
I think of a web-based resource where people can go and get it.
Okay.
Great.
So I don't know if trying to pamphlet, which people throw out or, more sustainable to do it on the website, right? So,
Hopefully they recycle it.
hopefully, yes. So the last is related to, so this is environmental sustainability. So what the Riverwalk Task Force had identified several years ago is along our waterways, and some of it is like the Walled Lake Branch, so it's the larger, but then we have many streams, but those streams can be, even the Randolph Drain looks like a very small stream depending on the water, say between Center Street and Randolph. But what we have is primarily residential. There are a couple businesses that they have just out of necessity or desire for the way it looks, they put up walls adjacent to the river or stream. And I know it was brought to my attention, this is the prior building official, that he saw one that he thought was that it wasn't a too high of a wall, but if it went in with the dirt behind it, it would, like Randolph Drain would be redirected, right? And then we've got the very high walls on the other side over by Stitching Post and along there. I really think we need to identify where those walls are, and we just need to, at least at minimally, a visual inspection. The building official brought this to my attention. I was unaware. This is, would have been over a year ago. Those are the responsibility of the property owner to maintain those. But I don't know that we've ever inspected them. But if any one of those walls went into that stream, the waterway, it wouldn't be a good day for the homes nearby or for the river as a
Right.
whole. So I don't know. That's a begin point. I mean, the Riverwalk Task Force in their report did identify one area. And it was, and I have brought that up other years, but subsequent information is there's other smaller, they're not 10-foot walls, but they might be 4-foot adjacent. So I don't know how that's dealt with, but it needs to be inventoried at a minimum.
Keep it on Scott's radar as our
I
inspector.
can talk to our inspector. I'm not
Absolutely.
familiar with the
Yep,
issue.
he's done a great job, and others, we have to bring him up to speed and make
Well,
sure
and
he's inspecting too.
Your Riverwalk did the one that it's an easy visual, right? But these others, you'd have to be walking either in the stream or on private property to see you. So you'd have to really literally walk the stream, which I don't think is something volunteers should be doing because it is private property. But it is a real, it's a potential risk
Right.
that is a real risk, and we don't even know
Right.
where those things are. So.
Keep that in mind for Scott. Great. Anybody else in this section? One, bring place. Let's go on, section 5. I believe.
So advanced public assets, transportation and infrastructure. Evaluate the street asset management plan and provide recommendations to address system needs. So this is the overall plan for streets, repair High Street culvert.
Yep.
Explore funding for the roundabout and bridge at 7 Mile and Hines. Complete the replacement of the Rural Hill Bridge. Remove water system reservoir, and this is the big one, implement water system adjustments to address system needs. So that's the administrative consent order issues. Reconstruct roads in coordination with other infrastructure improvements. Review the 2024 culvert and bridge inspection report and recommend implementation priorities. So we're going to be coming to council in the near future to talk a little bit more about culverts and drains, because we have, in addition to some of the ones we've said we're working on, we have some additional problems that we've identified that we're going to have to look for funding on, or fund ourselves. So there's challenges coming on some culverts as well. And we'll be having a special conversation just on that. Compile a comprehensive capital project plan. So I think to date, we've more looked at funding of projects that were receiving funding, and we want to come to council with things like culverts and drains and things that we don't necessarily have funding for, so that we can start to make decisions on what are priorities and where we should be spending our resources.
Sure.
And we'll be doing that as a part of the budget process. Update the Allen Terrace Facilities Assessment. So that was part of the conversation about financial sustainability. Improve existing facilities to provide efficient staff spaces. And that's a continued challenge we have, that we're living with old facilities, and we have to continue to find ways to make sure we have good working spaces for people. And then update the cemetery ordinance. And that was it.
Just from my standpoint, I thank you for being as aggressive on the grants. Grants are great, and I see 3 of these that jump out, the culvert, the bridge at Rural Hill, and some other cemetery activities. Working federal, state, and county, we might get 0% match to 10 to sometimes 50%. It's all great, says Sandy to me. We are always trying to find money if we can kind of leverage that. Thank you for continuing to look at every opportunity, because we can't afford these things without the grants that are out there individually. Even if we have to put 10% up on it, we're way in front of that, because we need that maintenance that we haven't done historically for a couple generations. It's time to catch up, and we are through grants. So I thank Sandy again for all your folks, but looking at all those grants as they come out, and each one of you on council, you brought those grants up as they come to the city. keep working on it. We will always, have a match on that and try to do the right thing, even if you have to squeeze a little bit of that 10% for $1 million, but we'll do it. Good. So that's all I have on that because 3 of them jumped out. We're on grants on 3 of those activities on your page there. Keep working it. Can't do it without. Anything on this section?
Well, kick this one off. For the update Allen Terrace facility assessment, there was very robust capital improvement plan. So is that backing that up? I'm just wondering how they relate to one another. Maybe John can help me with that or.
So my understanding is there was an assessment, there was a capital improvement plan done by a prior administrator. Is that what occurred? But it wasn't like an engineering assessment to the facilities to look at the HVAC systems, the roofing, puck pointing, all the things of the building facility that you would do in a full
So this is,
facilities assessment.
okay, so this
That's
is
what we
digging
envisioned.
deeper than the kid. And the capital, that was Nate Ginzer that did. that.
Right.
We had a
Yeah, so
consultant. do that.
you'd hire a building or construction professional who would do an assessment for the full facility.
And it's kind of a
20-year plan.
self-funding organization. We own it, but you put a roof on through
Oh, no.
our deals.
Super.
And also the dumpster, the trash gate we had, we put all new equipment down there. We appreciate that because that is not taxpayers' money. It is, as we put money into different accounts. I think it's outstanding what we've done up there and didn't you do renovations to the doors and the different kitchens? Yep. And the
Yeah,
appliances.
so update the Allen Terrace facility assessments. I mean, so this is really important. I just wasn't understanding that linkage
Right.
between the capital improvement
I
plan.
would see the existing capital improvement plan was more for like long-term planning, estimating what are the priorities?
Okay.
What are the things that need to get solved, timelines around those and rough level estimated costs. So getting the additional detail, I think makes a lot.
Yeah, so you're looking at current condition and potential, life expectancy on different
Yep,
items. So
on all the
that's
big-
great.
on all the big
So
facility, big building systems.
that's really great. Thanks. It was just flushing that out for my mind.
Good.
And the one, this is, going back to the Culvert Road. Compile a comprehensive capital projects plan, which is great, that item. Just as something that wasn't that long ago, I think in 2022, we had a survey with our residents on priorities, that was more, the Ford Fields, the Riverwalk, but then in that, as part of that, when we did it, council priorities, we also had things that were, that we prioritized.
Yep.
That included what you'd be putting on this list. So please look to that.
Yep.
Because what it was, and this was my worry at the time, it was like, well, these are really important. I mean, we were scoring them in the many of them in the 80s and 90s, which is probably going to be potentially on your list. And then it was like, well, where's that going in terms of planning? It was like, well, it's the administrative parking lot. To use it. I mean, literally, they said, we're going to park it. So I would like you
I
to,
remember hearing about that process. I wasn't a part of the process.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly sure how it.
I
how
have
they
the
adapted.
documents.
No,
So
I don't know how useful it is if we say we have drains that are gonna collapse and then we say, but we really want a new,
you,
shiny thing, you gotta try.
no, we weren't. In fact, they were dealing with the not new shiny things. They were looking at those nuts and bolts of things that you actually need. So
So we would be making recommendations. If it's an engineering standard, things like culverts and that sort of stuff in roads, we'll be
Mhm.
making recommendations.
but there were important things in there that the city administration wanted on the list.
Okay.
And so they've just, there was
I haven't-
very robust
I haven't
discussions then.
familiarized myself with Nate's process in that, but I remember hearing that it was done.
Well, I have the end documents where they were, listed, so I will have to share that with you. And I think there were 2 items removed. One was it was the 7 Mile Center Street roundabout. It was, because it was still in planning.
Yep.
But now,
And engineering.
now we've got to implement other things that we went from planning to implementation we left on. I think that's gonna take enough of city staff's time that keeping it posted,
Mhm.
right? So I think that should stay on here,
Mhm.
right? It's just going from planning to implement. I think before it was design and now we're going into implementation. So I would
That's
ask
fine.
that be,
Roundabout.
yeah, well, no, I love that we have on for the second roundabout.
Keep
You
the
know, that's a planning, but
Yep,
keep
got it.
on for the.
One's
okay.
planning.
The other
one
is, and I
implementation.
don't want to give up hope yet, is that the Katy Street reroute. That area is still in play because we don't have things happening at Foundry Flash. We have a very willing owner of the other property. And so there's a lot in flux there. And so that is very important. And if there's any way to make that happen, I hate it falling off the radar screen, and it was removed.
Which part?
The,
Katy Street at the end,
reroute.
working with
It
Wayne
was-
County, we have to put a light on the end to straighten it
So-
out in front of Foundry Flask, I believe is
so
what
it
you're
was
referring to.
in our prior
It's not
strategic,
dead. We've been
it was
talking to Wayne County,
evaluate Katy Street rerouting proposal.
And that's the rerouting.
Right. And it
That's the one
says,
Yeah.
and it was no
The
update,
double
no
bucket,
update, no update.
Single.
This project is not being pursued at this time. Well,
So my understanding is the project is not feasibly, financially feasible, but we could certainly discuss it. with
yeah,
council.
because Wayne County keeps saying no. Well, we'll keep beating our head against the wall with Wayne County. I mean, so, you know,
Just keep that, whether we put it on the list, let's have one more
Yeah.
meeting with them. We've talked them
Yeah,
on them
we
3 or
can
4
do it.
times.
I mean, it's the only thing is.
I
how much time
understand.
do you spend on debt?
I understand.
How much time do you? spend
oh,
on
well, there, but
projects That are not.
Give me that
gonna be
opportunity.
agree with you.
We
Yeah.
Well,
we have a
but-
limited amount of time that
Right.
Mike has.
Correct.
So we just, I'd.
Let's put that in the
I'll put it on the
asterisk.
list and we can talk
Yeah,
about it.
so-
Put it in the asterisk.
And again, the not beating, it's just that city staff continue to communicate with Wayne County regarding this concept. I think that's good to continue that conversation, even though it
Yep.
isn't the only thing
And
you're
then
talking
Mike
about.
has done that, and we have to put a light, where we're gonna put a light,
Mhm.
on the other, on the lower. part
Yeah,
of
so
KDO.
that area, and because the redevelopment has not begun, it is still ripe for possibilities
Yep.
with willing landowners in that area.
Correct.
So that was it.
Good.
That was-
Go on to your last section of life. Oh,
Yeah, did you have any comments?
any
No,
comments?
the only thing I'll add to that is on B1B, so reconstruct roads. I would like to see a publishing of the Paisley rating.
Oh, I hate
I
that.
do want to see a forecast of
We should.
when roads may happen, maybe not committed like on a quarterly or yearly basis, but at least detail, yes, we're aware that this road requires reconstruction. We also know that maybe the water has to go in first. Because we do get a lot of questions on roads. We have the data. We just have to find a way to have the plan out there so people are aware what we're doing with the roads, know that there is a plan. In the absence of socializing a plan, new theories come into play. So I'd rather have Mike be able to detail that. I know he has it. I know there's a long-term strategy on Paisley ratings, where we have to go, where the key roads are. What's a major road that's getting water main replacement? We just need to get, that information exists. But I think we have to do a good job maybe getting that out there, even if it's a once a year, saying, here's where we think we're going next year or 2 years out and why.
I do think that even with the water projects, we're going to get a big infusion of road projects that are going to come up. But I do think at some point, council's probably going to have to look, and staff will have to look with council at some sort of a bigger solution to our road
Right.
problem.
Right.
Because I don't think the existing resources are going to do the road projects the way council was.
So what is it? Was like Orchard was like $1,000 a linear foot or something like?
I think it's likely going to be, if we want to catch up, we're going to have to do some sort of.
So we need to, knowing that that's inevitable and that's coming, we do have to start telling that story better and saying, we understand this, we've done the core work, we know what we have to do. We can't just do mill and fill. We have to walk it all the way down, start over. This is what this road requires. This is, we have all the information. Mike, you do a great job with it. I think we just need to get it to the residents so that they know that we're working it. Because
That should
it's a
be on-
big deal.
That site, that's gonna be very easy, so they can
Yeah.
look at roads
something-
and the Paisley ratings, and they can kind of see as we're going forward, when's the schedule, 27, 28, 26, yeah.
Yeah.
No, Wendy wants to get pulled into this too.
I actually wanted to make sure you were aware, under this item A1A, evaluate, or actually, I guess it's back. Or maybe it's forward. Yeah.
5A1A?
Evaluate street asset management plan and provide recommendations. That's what you're talking about. The
That's
Taser
me
study.
doing the Pacer, but I also then want to socialize
Size it
the
too.
long-term plan.
Right. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure we
Expert.
can change that wording to make sure that's included, but I want to That's what that item is.
Perfect, showing like red lines are for next year, blue lines are for 2 years out. I mean, sort of telling people when they could see.
Do
the
it and
roads being
communicate it.
done.
Yeah, because my road, Linden Court
Yeah.
is among the least good
2038.
roads in the entire city. And my neighbors are very excited on when all that work's gonna start.
And the lead service.
And we also have the oldest lead service lines in the city in our part of the neighborhood. So it's absolutely fantastic.
Good.
But if we can tell that story, because it exists and it needs to be out there and accessible, because I think our residents deserve to know.
And I do think we're gonna need a bigger solution for roads. because
Yeah, so we need to start talking about that now. When we talk bigger solutions, I don't want it to just show up on the front door in 2 years or whatever it is.
So on that topic, so having the map that shows when the plan is,
Mhm.
that's been so helpful either to direct residents to, or just they look at it on their own, right? But I think the Paiser rating, because you might not be on that list, right? You're not even in the 3-year plan.
Right.
But what's the Paiser, what's the
See what the
quality of,
rating is.
what's the evaluation of my street? And I think that was done for each block, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yep.
So recently we had each street, looked at, graded. We also did over 52 cores throughout the city. So we didn't look at just the surface like in the past, we looked at what's underneath as well.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why it appears we're slowing down a little bit, is you're going all the way down. Like if you went to Orchard, you went all the way down to, was it like
All
limestone
the
substrate base? We're not mill and fill anymore.
So Orchard was, we looked at it as a typical mill and fill, that was probably $500,000 project, if not less. We did over $1 million project, it was 1.2 because.
Once you got into it.
All the way down.
Yep. So people won't know that. So we can say, hey, you're on Orchard, or you're on Thayer, this is the status of your road. We're keeping an eye on it.
Yep.
You know, I think that would be really helpful.
So that,
With the base our rating, it will give you a recommendations, 1 through 3, is a full reconstruct.
Rail Street.
1 through 5, partial reconstruct and all build.
Perfect.
We will have that all together. You will start seeing some actual streets listed, when it comes to our budget, process.
Great.
The issue with providing a map of, we have a 5-year plan. We have the dollar amount, we know what we want to do, but we can't control what consumer does, or telecommunications does. So we hate to put out a street 5 years from now, and when we get there, consumers haven't done their work. And it
Estimate.
gets pushed back and back and back.
Estimate.
We've had Spring Drive, we pushed back several years and. it's still-
That could be part of the story. too.
Right.
I mean, so it's not a fact that Mike's not doing the work. It's actually you're doing all the work you need to. But
Just
somebody on
communicate.
Spring won't know that we can't act until the utility underneath that needs to be addressed. Or at least say, we understand the condition, or here's the condition of your road, we're watching it, just so they know we have eyes on it. And maybe you're right, maybe it's not 5 years from now, but it's say, here's the status of your road and what needs to happen. It's something, whatever that mechanism, I think people would really.
Communicate
appreciate
as
that.
part of that whole bullet.
Yep.
point, Wendy.
can we simply, do they give you a report that you can actually have the Paiser report on?
Mhm.
So
And
that would be,
I can easily get that out. Public
Not everybody.
HR rating is, they update it based off of what we enter into the database. It's also published out there as well. It's across the state database and.
Correct.
The evaluation gets shared. But similar to what George said, funding for future road projects, we're gonna be utilizing a lot of the water funds for portions of the roads. We're allowed to. We're looking up for.
You gotta rip it up anyway, so you.
You know, I
might
mean, you're
as well bring it
ripping up
back,
Linden
correct?
because there's a main underneath it, so you're not gonna do the road until you do the main.
And SEMCOG has some grants on Paiser, to go out there and evaluate too. We'll try to evaluate those, so we're not.
I just think there's a value there to the
Great.
sense, just how we tell the story. So
Great.
that, it's accessible. That's it.
Thank you, Mike. Go ahead, John.
Only other thing I was gonna add, so agree with everything that was just discussed in terms of the High Street culvert as well as Rural Hill. The bridge itself, just communication. I think at this point, Mike could probably tell you when the first day of Hillside is, when the first day of Swim Club, or when there's an Alan Terrace meeting based on when I email him. Cause those questions are asked constantly and it impacts a lot of residents in terms of getting to those facilities or getting into town. And then obviously, with Rural Hill, especially if we're blocking access to it, making sure that's very public, everyone knows timelines, how that's gonna happen. There's implications there as well we want to get in front of.
Great. Anything else to add, Councilperson Shania?
Communication,
Yep.
and that's just good.
Great. Thank you. Get that theme going on tonight. Okay.
So
Last section.
Final section, enhance public access, recreational and cultural opportunities, complete the Ford Field Gateway and Bank Stabilization Project. Replace the Ford Field Playground with an accessible structure, and those are both obviously envisioned for this summer to be done. Well, maybe not completed, but certainly started. Prepare the new farmers market site for the use by 2025 market season, considering we get to closing.
February 4th.
Improvements to Serenity Point, which is already, seems to be some work activity happening there starting now. Construct the restrooms at Ford Field. That is in 2026, the grant that we got. Monitor construction of the river park and plan for its acceptance into the park system. And develop Northville Riverwalk plan and develop expanded regional trail plan implementation. So those are two separate things. The Riverwalk plan is the one within the city going from the Downs Park up to Ford Field through those sections. And then the extended one is going to be how we connect into the north to Novi,
Right.
which isn't quite as easy, and that's more long-term planning. So, and that concludes it.
So just on that, absolutely, we are intensely into those first 5 sections of the Riverwalk. There are other partners, Oakland County going up to Rotary Park, going north, Wayne County going to the south, and even the township going from Haggerty out to or back to the Fish Hatchery, all the way to Fish Hatchery Park and beyond to Beck Road. We are intensely into those first 5 sections by the last day of 2026, as you know. So for our bicentennial, we will have those first 5 sections done with all the
Got to
grants
make
and
them
opportunities.
ourselves.
I believe that's what you tell me every day. Good.
I think you told me that.
Okay, okay.
You can do the super fun
We are
site.
working as,
You can
we
do
are
the super
working as hard as.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dig there.
Yeah, so I'm digging for you.
All right.
As hard as
Yep,
possible on
yep,
those
got you.
sections.
Good. That's all I have. You're doing a great job. I know I kid you on some of that, but thank you. Thank you. Others on this last section.
Who wants to go? I just have a couple.
I mean, mine will be super quick here. The only thing I was gonna say is I know construction because of grant timing for the bathrooms in Ford Field is gonna be 2026. I tried everything I could in 2025, but I'll wait for a grant.
Mhm.
The only
Right.
thing I was gonna suggest though is we figure out the plans from a utility standpoint, location standpoint, because as we're laying everything else out, we're gonna want to know where that's going.
Yep.
Even if we have to wait the year to get,
It will all
funding
be,
to
it will all
implement.
be organized as if it's one.
Mhm.
I mean, it'll be in
Exactly.
phases, but it's,
Yep.
we know where it's going.
Great.
Um,
all good news.
yeah, related to the replace Ford Field play structure with an accessible structure, I would say with the structure, because it'd be ADA universal, we've got to figure that out. Because we'll be self-funding this.
Well,
Right.
we are saying accessible because we are going for an MEDC grant that has an enhanced amount for accessibility
For the playground.
for the playground.
So the playground, so that doubles the price.
Well, we're going.
We went through this with Parks and Rec, right?
Our
So,
goal is an accessible structure, so that's what we're
Mhm.
Cause
trying to
you-
get to, but if we have to pare it back.
but I didn't think we submitted a grant and we were rejected, denied. And I didn't think we had one I'm talking about this playground structure.
Yep.
And we didn't get that one. So we were gonna do the funding for that one through us as a city as well as donations, correct?
We applied for a RAP grant, RAP 2.0 for the playground.
Oh,
We
you-
were denied.
Correct.
We are now doing fundraising, one of which is a patronicity grant, which is also through MEDC. It's a $50,000 grant that they match 50,000. However, if it's an accessible structure, that goes up to 75,000. And I think that's not the only reason we're looking at accessible. This whole park, we're looking at accessibility from the standpoint of just making it available to residents, no matter what their abilities are.
So,
And so this isn't the current budget that we are operating under, or the current estimate we're operating under for this project was based on an accessible structure.
correct, because, and we've dealt with this on Parks and Rec, remember
Right.
with Fish Hatchery.
Absolutely.
So, initially in Fish Hatchery, it was an $800,000 structure because in order to apply for the grant, 400,000 of that, it had to be universally accessible. Just so everybody knows, that's the poured surface. So all of it had to be the poured surface, which is extremely expensive. And so.
Soft poured surface. So that goes-
Yeah, versus now they have different surfaces that are also safe, but that's the universal accessibility, the only surface option now. So, and we backed out because we didn't get the grant. And so we did it and it's still more accessible than it used to be.
Mhm.
It's an ADA accessible. It's just not universals because we didn't do poured because we had half the funds. So I think we did it for 425,000, right? So where we're at on this is it is assumed now it has to be 100% universal accessibility, where there are city parks that are a mix, that a good portion of it is universal, but there still are parts that are not. And that's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean it's not an accessible structure. It's just not the poured surface everywhere. Those poured surfaces, one and two things is because they are good, but they are not good long-term wear. So there is some risk in that if you do the 100% of it. And the other is that there is research that shows for kids that are actively jumping off structures on it, that there's increased lower leg injuries on the soft surface versus the softer or the what are they, the chips. So just meant we have to be open to doing this. And the patronicity thing, it's like, oh, they're going to give us an extra 25,000, but we're paying 400,000, right? Not to mean it would go from 400,000 for the surface to zero. It would maybe be to 200 or something, but so if getting that extra 25 means we have no surface flexibility, I don't know if the 25 is worth it.
That doesn't mean we'll have no surface flexibility. So
Okay.
we will have surface flexibility with that particular grant. And this isn't saying a universally accessible structure, it's just saying accessible.
Yeah,
And
which we would all
so,
want, right? So,
right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Anyway, so it's, but it isn't, we don't have a design yet. So it says replace. So I think we're
still in the design.
we're still in that. So I think replace, now if we want to say design and replace, because we did make a commitment to our community to come up with different designs. But I know Wendy's working on that, different designs. We get feedback on those different designs to start narrowing it down. So I think we need to just make sure we're clear.
Yep.
Okay.
We don't want anybody to think we're done with the design.
Nope.
We're
Open
not.
those ones.
Okay.
Anything else?
Mm-mm.
Anybody else on this? And John?
Nope.
So the only thing I have to say on that, I know we've been very aggressive in some public organizations and some endowment and funds. We are not done looking for funding where versus a $500,000 grant or 800,000. Each one of those private organizations we're looking at is $100,000 plus. So we're going to be very aggressive. And that Ralph Wilson Foundation said to do all this stuff and we'll get $1. We haven't got $1 from them. So I am not extremely pleased with them, but we will get back with them aggressively because we've done everything they've asked for them to have matching. So if we collect $1, they should come back. Let it go. I'm not going to let it go.
You are not
I'm not going to let that one go because I got a commitment 4 years ago from them and we will get it. So, okay. Ooh, send me the therapy bill.
So
With that, I will open it up for public comment if there's anything else.
up to say, as we're done here, from our perspective, unless Council has any more, we're going to aggregate this stuff, combine it into what you said, and come back with a more final document for you for your consideration and approval at a later date. But I appreciate all your time and.
Great. Thank you very much. And just stay close. Public comment now. Mary, you are up first.
Partly, I want to make a public comment because I just want to speak up.
Okay, I know it.
Okay, first of all, I would like to say on the packet brings up a point that I think you could consider going through a number of these things, especially in the communication related user friendliness. There is no key on here for your abbreviations. What is SP? What is CD? I have no idea. Okay.
That's good. Good point.
The grant situation, I think a grant dashboard would be wonderful. I think you could use some user-friendly resident input. I saw a spreadsheet once, about 6 months ago. It seemed to be missing some fields. You showed what was applied for, whatever. but it didn't show how much was actually received. So maybe that's changed, I don't know. But resident input would be a good thing there. The city website, my suggestion is, as a person who uses it just about every day and is more adept than Mrs. Janetti, I would suggest that you blow it up and start over. It's just terrible. The keyword search is useless. And again, I think focus groups would be very valuable to redesign it at least to the front end that touches the users. Open houses, good idea. But if you got my letter, you'd see that I am really a fan of town halls. Open houses, if they're like the ones you've had for Ford Field and the non-motorized plan, you have a bunch of information around a room. You don't really get to ask questions. The questions and responses are not on the record. So people who don't attend don't have a chance to read it. I think that still town halls are the gold standard of communication to your residents. Zoom, I think you all know, I think Zoom is a priority. I just want to mention, I've been in a lot of Zoom court hearings lately for some reason. And if the courts find them secure, I don't know why the city of Northville wouldn't. The state of Michigan does have Zoom guidelines to make them more secure. I will send them to you. And the parking study, I read the report. I was really intrigued by a lot of the data. And I am concerned that the Fishbeck study wasn't accepted. And I would hate for their data and the report to be turned into something above and beyond what it was offered as. If you need to use it as the basis for an implementation plan, that's fine, but their study is not our study. If it hasn't gone far enough, then you need to have additional micro studies, but I think you should leave it alone. Okay.
Thanks
thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Miriam.
Anybody else from the audience? Comments going once, going twice? Come right up.
I just got a question about like the open meetings part of it. Like, is there any way that we can, like, once a month have a meeting where we can ask questions and get answers? Is there any way we can do that?
I think that's some of the, with coffee with council and the whole bit, but I know this isn't public sale. It's a great point.
Meeting with 10, 12 people. I'm talking so people can come in here and ask questions. Like, I've heard all kinds of stuff tonight. I don't know, how am I gonna get the answers to my questions? And one thing I just, like I say, this is my craw. How many fire trucks do we own? Ladder trucks? Is there 2 in Plymouth or 1?
It's a great question.
Well, you're the fire chief.
One, it's closer than it's ever been.
I
So-
know, that's not my point.
Yep.
We had one, we sold.
Yep.
We only have 1. So
We sold it.
that one that's in Plymouth is gonna go to the township.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
now.
So we have
ISO
2
rating
closer
that
than
we're
it's ever been.
gaining, Plymouth is gonna lose the ISO rating. Like he says, oh, it's close. You said it. If it's closer, our insurance rates will go down.
That is correct.
Well, what about Plymouth?
It's a great question.
I know it's a great question. And you
Thank you
guys
very
don't think
much.
you're getting rid of.
No, we think about everything.
Getting rid of a ladder truck when you're building an apartment building with how many residents and everything's gonna be 3 and 4 stories tall. You picked the worst time in this city's history to get rid of a ladder truck. You could have got one, at least the 80-footer like we used to have that we used to keep in the barn over here. But you guys, you know how much? If
We
something
do.
goes wrong, you always had a problem with the caster lines. They had to wait to get a ladder truck from Plymouth to get that guy down. Why? You guys couldn't have got him off the roof any other way?
Speak to us.
I know somebody, you guys, there's so many problems in this town that you guys don't think of. You just keep spending money. We gotta have money. Ford Field, we got $1.5 million we're spending there. But our roads are falling apart. How many studies have we had? You know, just downtown for the curbless street stuff. You had $50,000 we spent when you did the study for the bollards and the boardwalks and that. Then you put out another 45,000 for this last study. You have 50 grand on a roundabout. That roundabout isn't gonna work either. You got roundabout coming in where there's gonna be all that traffic going across at Fairbrook Street. You don't think that's gonna back traffic up at the roundabout? You guys have not put very much thought in all the stuff you're doing. It's just, oh, we'll get a grant. We got money. How much is that farmer's market gonna cost after you try to build a building there? And are you guys, how much do you owe the township for all the due diligence?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I'm saying.
Any other public comment? Going once, going twice. I'm closing that off. You are not asking for a motion because we are coming
I'd
back.
like to
Is that
answer the fire
correct?
Stuff because it's just, I know you don't want.
I know.
Can I answer that?
Sure you can.
So there was a detailed analysis by ICMA. Their experts came in and did an analysis of our apparatus, our risk profile, our needs and locations. The fire truck was seldom used and sat in a station in Plymouth that was storage. It was not staffed anytime. The only time that truck would have access was someone would have to go to that station to get the truck to bring it to a fire. Now this truck sits in Northville Township in a 24-hour staffed station.
Yep.
It is closer and it is staffed by full-time firefighters, and it will respond automatically due to mutual aid. Do you want to come up, Chief, and explain? Because we don't want people to think that we have divested of an asset that we need.
Correct.
The asset is closer and more available than it was before with staffing.
And
So I
without
want-
harm
I
to,
want to Put that out to people to make sure people understand this was an extremely sound decision by the
How
city.
about when they're training?
and with,
You.
So before previously it was housed in Plymouth. So trains could be an issue. Obviously, there's a lot of trains in Plymouth. But with it being in Northville Township, it is closer to the city of Northville, but it is still close enough to Plymouth City also to count for the ISO rating between both cities. So when we looked at it, it was most beneficial to move that to there and have it respond. We do have mutual aid with them, so it responds automatically for structure fires. If we need it for anything, that was part of the agreement of the sale, was anything we need it for, basically it's there for us. We can call them and they'll bring it to us.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We've already closed off public comment. You are not looking for a motion tonight. You're going to take that input, bring it back to the next meeting or when it's on the schedule, and we will have one more chance. Anybody can have public comments at that point. So that is the only thing that is on our agenda tonight. I am going to the final mayoral and comments from council, if you have it. Only thing I have to say tonight, I thank a lot of the folks in Norfolk, the 5 task forces and all the 27 boards, and I see a lot of those people in here for the work they've done. That's why there are so many things accomplished, because everybody's been working on that over the last 4, 5, 6 years, looking for the funding, looking for the arms and the legs and time, talents and treasures out there. I appreciate it. We have so many things going on at the same time. We could not do these things without the input of all those 5 task forces and everybody on council. They head up different task forces that are out there. Appreciate all the time and getting the grants out there too. Last, there's a community awards banquet that's from the chamber on February 6th. They will be giving awards out for some of those people that have done so much for the community. Everybody here is invited. Talk to Michelle. The public, you're invited to go. That's through the chamber. That's all I have. I thank you for everything. I thank all the people on staff and you, George, for the tremendous work you've done in the past year to the last few years in here. And thank you, finance, for finding that money once in a while too. Thank you, Sandy. Anything else? Go ahead.
I'm going to follow up on just a public comment by Mary Keys, just to clarify on the parking study. So just to be clear, we did not as a body reject the parking study, but what we did is we took the parking study as a draft. And John Fishback, who was, John, who was here that night, he will be meeting, it's next week,
Yep. next
Yeah,
Friday.
that he'll meet with John and I. Hopefully staff can attend as well. And I just want to clarify what I said that started that in motion. One is that it wasn't related to their scope of work, the information that they gathered, any of that information. But it was their report. Well, their report did not include the executive summary, which they should always be together. And the other is that topics that were part of their scope and work, whether it's for a finding, a conclusion, or a recommendation, it was like large print. So the way it wasn't even a complete sentence, right? So it's just flushing some of those out so that if somebody picks it up 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, that document, which is actually a PowerPoint presentation, is all we have. So to make sure that his final report, for him not to worry that if he can have a full sentence on something, right? To just put that full information so somebody can pick that up, that all of us are going, because last time we did this with at least 15 years ago, can pick it up and know what it was about. He also had information he did not include in that report on ADA parking and also EVs that was in their executive summary, that was part of their scope of work, but it was not there. My understanding, he has some additional charts and tables and stuff that he'll just be attaching. That's part of his data collection findings. So it is not at all more. It's just making sure what's there is written in a way that whatever his finding was or recommendation or conclusion, that it's written in a way that somebody can pick it up and know what he meant when they're trying to do, look and do actionable items in the future.
The narrative sound like that executive summary.
Not a give and take.
Well, no. So no, it wouldn't have to be like the executive summary, but it would at least be flushed out. I mean, I don't think we care if he uses bullets, but complete sentences and topics so that it's flushed out so that it can be fully understood, picked up independently and know what it meant. And it'll be just iterative meeting with him and highlighting where those areas are. So that's it. So it is not.
Or you can stay back after and.
Yeah,
ask-
so I just want
ask
to
the
be clear,
questions,
we
get
did
some
not
answers.
reject that parking study in any way, shape or form. You know what I mean? It was just making sure for posterity, it's a comprehensive report in what he gave us, so.
Others.
No, I'll just add, we accepted it as a draft.
Yeah.
The information we received was comprehensive. It was data.
Yep.
It was just, there was parts that we needed to add because to the Mayor Pro Tem's point, that document needs to be sufficient for somebody who's not in the room to understand what was written. So there
And
was,
you're on that committee?
it was
and
more
so is Mayor Pro
format.
Tem.
There was a few gaps, ADA, EV, and a couple of things. The data's available was not in the report, but everything that was in the report was, I think, acceptable. We just have to go through that iteration and then have it submitted as complete.
And your digitized input was good?
We'll have it.
And you have a great deal of input too, to be put on that.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
And then the consultant preferred that be iterative, not like us send us something and he's got to reply and so that's the way we're
We'll
gonna
get it
do
right.
Good. Anybody else? Councilman Janetti?
So.
Great one. Good.
A
John?
lot of work to do, but there's a lot to be excited about in this.
Absolutely.
Good day.
Thank you, everybody, for being part of that for the city. It was great. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Do I have it seconded?
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We're,
Thank you,
thank you.
everybody, for being here.